got that draw.
Yeah, shake that ass.
Oh, shake that.
Yeah, shake that ass. Shake, 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 yeah. Shake, 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 shake. Yeah, shaking her ass.
Whenever it's early twilight, I watch as the stars break through. Funny, it's not a star I see, it's always you. Whenever I roam through roses, and lately I often do. Funny, it's not a rose I touch, it's always you. If a breeze caresses me, it's really you strolling by. If I hear a melody, it's merely the way you sigh. Wherever you are, you're near me. You dare me to be untrue. Funny, each time I fall in love, it's always you. Whenever it's early twilight, I watch as the stars break through. Funny, it's not a star I see, it's always you. Whenever I roam through roses, lately I often do. Funny, it's not a rose I touch, it's always you. If a breeze caresses me, it's really you strolling by. If I hear a melody, it's merely the way you sigh. Wherever you are, you're near me. You dare me to be untrue. Funny, each time I fall in love, it's always you.
I'd like to begin the Tuesday, January 17th, 2012 Single Family Design Board. Kathleen, if you could call roll, please.
Chair Geisler.
Here.
Vice Chair Mullery.
Here.
Red Miller.
Here.
Fred Sweeney. Here. Jim Zimmerman. We have a quorum.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to open up public comment. Any member of the public may address the Single Family Design Board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within their jurisdiction that is not scheduled for public discussion before the board today. I don't see anybody. I don't have any slips, so I'm going to close public comment, and I'll bring it back to the board for their approval of the minutes for the SFDB January 3rd, 2012. Do I have a motion for approval? First by Fred, seconded by Denise. And let me read each category or each address. First item was 1128 Harbor Hills Lane. Are there any comments on the minutes? Second item was 1607 Shoreline Drive. No comments. The third item was 3439 Campanile Drive. And the fourth item was 1121 Walnut Avenue. And that was the last item on that meeting. Any comments on any of those items? If not, I'll take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries. Jim, I think you need to abstain from one item. Okay, from item number 2. Okay. Okay, so we'll move it to the consent calendar for January 9th. May I have a motion for approval of the calendar?
I'll make that motion.
First by Denise, seconded by Jim. And Michelle, if you could read that calendar, please.
Consent agenda for Monday, January 9th, 2012. Item A, 2425 Calle Galicia, which granted final approval as submitted. Item B, 110 Ontario Hills Lane, is granted project design approval and final approval as submitted with the NPO findings. Item C, 1001 C. Melinda Lane, was granted project design approval with the NPO findings and was continued indefinitely for final. And the items were reviewed by Brian Miller and Denise Woolery.
Thank you. Is there any comments on any of those consent items? Okay, I'll take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. May I get a motion for the January 17th, 2012 consent calendar? Brian first, seconded by Fred. And Michelle, if you could read that calendar, please.
Yes, consent agenda for Tuesday, January 17th, 2012. Item A, 1001 C. Melinda Lane, granted final approval as submitted. Item B, 407 Conejo Road, was granted final approval of the review after final. Item C, 1530 Franceschi Road, was granted project design approval and final approval as submitted with the NPO findings. Items were reviewed by Brian Miller and Denise Woolery.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments regarding any of those items on today's consent calendar? Hearing none, I'll take a vote for approval. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries. So we'll go to announcements. Staff, are there any announcements or any items that we need to be aware of? No announcements. So we'll move to subcommittee reports. And I don't believe we have any subcommittees at this point, so we have no reports. We can start a little bit early for item number 1, which is 104 West Jurgensen Lane, and we'll get the applicant up here and some drawings in 1 second.
Bring that shower. We don't need this.
So this project was here before us and got project design approval on August 29th of last year. We'll get the minutes from that meeting, so we'll read the comments that were attached to the project. And Denise, if you would be so kind to read those minutes.
Continued indefinitely to the full board with the following comments. They include the floor to lot area ratio and grading calculations on the plans. Return with details for chimney and architectural features, windows, paving, cabana, and garage doors. Provide tile and material samples. Provide a color board. Provide a landscape plan. Provide compliance with Tier 3 stormwater management program.
That's it. Stormwater. Okay. And if you could introduce yourself and your team.
Okay, I'm Jeff Shelton, architect. To the left is Brooke Eiler, helped us with landscape design, and Jason Rick, the owner.
All right, thank you. And your presentation.
Okay. In regards to the swamp measures, they're in here, but Jaime asked us to correct a detail, so these are 3 sheets with that corrected detail. It was a coordination issue. So this is the new C4 sheet, which we'll turn in. Okay.
Can you open them up and let's see if we can see that?
Yeah, let's get that up. Let's get that out of the way. We replaced this detail. So as we turn, there's all the. It was just this detail that was replaced on it.
Okay. Do you want to go over that in the
Yeah.
main plan first,
Yeah.
or?
So that detail refers to back to the main house. I don't know if you remember this, but a house up on this newly created site. Existing landscape plan. Here's our C drawings that we just passed over. Right. Where's our C1 here? Here's C2. Here where our trenches are down here in this area, which we will put in and cover them. Back with the native grass, the grasses that are there.
So the detail that you showed were
Yeah.
for those. Okay. And Mike's got all the calculations that are needed.
Yeah,
Okay.
we turned that into to whoever needed that. Who would
Okay.
that be? The planning, I guess. And Jaime, I guess, has reviewed that. So as we have this site plan out, we're going to go right to the. We'll go to the architecture and come back to the landscape plan. But what we have is we have this gate. I'm not sure that we had it on there last time, so we're going to be adding this gate, and it's coming over 20 feet, so cars can pull up in here. So we'll get to that, and this is just a refined grading plan, basically what we had last time, but now the engineer has gone over all of it. And landscape plan to go with it. Cabanya's out here. Nothing has changed as far as the location of things. It's just been refined here.
Okay.
Do you want to do landscape first or last? Does it matter?
The site is pretty good. If we could do landscape, yeah.
Okay. So, once again, what we were doing was trying to keep most of the site, which is the 3 acres, is it? 4 acres of the rocks and the grasses and the oak trees. So that was the goal. However, we were unable to, of course, do that right at the house. And we did have some program things such as a badminton court in a flat area. So we've kept all the landscaping within this graded area. After that, it just stays the same. It gets weed whacked every June, and that kind of thing goes on. So what we've done with the graded areas, either the cut and the fill areas, the theme has been using drought-tolerant plants, which basically succulents and aloes, euphorbias, and this whole list that we've put on here. So I'll send this down to that area, and this down here. There's been other, besides those areas, we have, of course, the turf areas for the badminton court, and then we have some transitional turf areas that may be on a bigger slope, which is, Brooke, what do we have on those?
You tap into the mic, please.
Carex praglateus. It's a native field sedge. It's around the lawn area and in the upper.
These areas here,
courtyard.
and then up in this area here. We have between with the turfs and the succulents, a few specimen trees, jacarandas, and then a lot of flagstone. And then it fades into a seeded area of native grasses and flowers into the what is now, let's call it naturalized grasses. We're moving whatever boulders we get here and can save all the ones that are exposed with lichens and all those great things. We're going to carefully pile up and put them back into the landscape. So we don't have a lot of drip irrigation. We have drip irrigation. Where is that? Where did I find that? Next one. We have it to set up any native plants or plants that need it to start growing, but that's really the main purpose of it. We'll have it for the specimen trees, but most of the succulent area doesn't need it and actually is problematic with too much water. So we've got zones zones as shown, ready for drip irrigation, but the fact is it's going to be minimized over the years as things get established. On to the architecture. We have, this is what you saw before, but I suppose a little more detail. We've got all the structural plans to go with it. We've got the kids' bedroom wing with a garage and basement underneath that wing. Everything else is a slab-on grade. Master bedroom wing and the loggia, sort of the main room out front. These are little loft spaces. Here's the garage and the basement area here, which is buried. This really hasn't changed much. It's all two-piece Mexican tile, handmade Mexican tile on the top. Door schedules, garage doors are a wood 3-panel raised 3-panel door. We were asked to bring in some tile samples and plaster samples. So plaster color is this. It's we had it made for this job.
This is the body color?
The body color.
Okay.
And it actually gets a lot more mottled. It's so rich that as you put it on, it doesn't look just like it was painted. It varies, which is what we're looking for. We have tile covering this bridge area here, which I'll show you, which are these colors. And then we have the entry. Around the entry vestibule are a mixture of these. And we have full color drawings coming up here. We've submitted a color board. I don't see it over here. Is it? Okay. So if you want to look at that, why don't we pull that out now, since we're on colors. So we have plaster. We have the windows are a dark color because we're really going to play off all these plants and the greens on the property. The ironwork is a dark purple. The lamp ironwork is a black, and the colored concrete is a sort of a mix. A colored concrete, which is the loggia, the whole loggia is poured concrete, is a sort of colors taken out of the plaster. Cross sections, I think we looked at all those last time. The entry is somewhere hidden here. Where did I put that entry? Here. Tile entry here would have these tiles all over it. There's the cabana with a voltaic cells on the roof. We've got an option for them if we can afford them. This is just to get, I didn't make a few changes I didn't make on this. This is just to give you the overall plan. It's confusing looking at those quarter-inch ones. For instance, that one went down. It did on the last plans too. That turned square. But basically, there's the size of the building and it all together in one piece. Details. These eaves details has a tile like this underneath it that wraps here. This part gets covered by the gutter, but you can see it from underneath. Here it is here. The walls are all 12 inches thick plus the plaster, so they end up being almost 14. These are the weep screed detail with this 3/4 inch paver. Just some general idea of the plaster. We'll take care of that in the field, but that gets them in the ballpark. Fireplaces, interiors you probably don't care about. Exteriors, simple, a copper lid here. Then here's a whirligig you asked me to draw. It's a bicycle wheel or something with tuna cans on it. That's over the kids' room. Actually, I noticed, I opened this up today, and this is actually the entry. These two titles go. Switch. This goes here, and this one is here. So the titles got flopped. But so this is around the entry, and this is on the bridge in the eaves. So when you take a set, take this one. It's got that mark on it. Lamps we went over last time. The main thing is that there's an amber glass in here, so we don't get any light shooting across the property. We've got the balcony over at the kids' room, which is this one, and then also the guardrail that goes around the deck. There's all this 1 inch. What would we end up doing? A 3/4 inch rod. Here's the front gate on sheet 7.2. That's the entry gate. It's the core tin. What do I have? It 5 feet tall, solid, that will roll past. We've got some very loose stone walls on either side of it with 3/4 inch rebar sticking up through it, but it'll rust also. And we have a whole set of engineering drawings. And our main concrete work is on S 2.0. It shows that the retaining we need to do in order to sneak this garage in. The rest of it is on a flat pad and is slab on grade. So you're welcome to go through those, but it's basically what you just saw.
Anything else for your presentation?
I think that's it.
Okay. So I'll go to the staff and see if they have comments. Has staff reviewed these drawings, the ones that are on the desk right now, other than that one detail sheet that just came in? Okay. I will go to public comment. Is there anybody here that would like to speak on the project? I don't have any slips. Nobody's standing up, so I'll bring it back to staff for their recognition of a letter for our file.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to bring to the board's attention, we received a letter from Jill Stein and David Unger, a neighbor at 575 Mountain Drive. This is their second letter that's been received for this project. The first letter was actually received the day after the first initial hearing back in April. But they just wanted to highlight some of their continuing concerns, primarily the neighborhood compatibility for a two-story design in a dominantly one-story neighborhood. They have concerns with their potential loss of private views, and just, of course, acknowledge that the board has limited jurisdiction over private views. They requested story polls back in April, and there was no justification as to why or why not the board did not grant that request. So maybe we just have you guys address that at this time. And that's their primary concerns.
All right, thank you. So I'll close public comment at this point, and I'll bring it back to their board for their questions. I do have a question myself. Jeff, can you go over one of the comments was about FAR? Mm-hmm. Can you show us on the plans where you are with your FAR calculations?
Here's the FAR calculations.
Okay. So according to this chart, if it's correct, it's 53% of the maximum FAR.
That's right.
Okay.
And by the way, we had a whole set of conditions that we designed this building from when they put the lot together, and then we lowered it per those conditions and all that. So it's a smaller building that was approved the first time.
Okay. Is there anybody else on the board that has questions? Denise?
Mr. Chair, the fencing that you have proposed of the rebar sticking straight up out of the rock in the front, I just have a question to staff. Is that something that's actually allowable without a top rail? It's just kind of pointing straight up in the air, and I mean, I just wonder about the safety of that, actually.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good question.
Right. Well, I mean, it's kind of linked. I mean, we don't want to approve something that isn't, you know.
Well, for code, it would be a building requirement.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah.
you can make a comment as to whether or not they need to have that revised.
Yeah,
and
I'm
then
not
come
so
back.
sure that you can do that. But
Or would want to do it. It's like barbed wire. I don't think is allowed.
yeah, I mean, I like the look. It's just a matter of that. Is it? There it is. It's on A7.2.
Jeff, can you point out where that actually...
We could put a top rail on it. I was trying to keep a big line out of the thing. I guess this didn't get drawn on here. It really fades away. It's mainly to keep... People could get on this property by all sorts of different ways. It's mainly to keep people from... maybe people selling stuff from
Sure.
parking and walking around.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's a question
Yeah.
that will be answered by building and safety then at that.
Yeah, and I guess we need to take it one more step. Maybe you're liable for something like that.
Well, that's
too.
what I'm
Yeah.
curious about, is that, you know, I know on building sites, you always have to put some kind of a little fluorescent cup on top of that.
All right, we'll add fluorescent cups in.
You could do that all along, maybe. Not. But,
I just want to follow up on Denise's comment, because I don't see anything on the landscape plan. Then you talked about kind of security issues. Then I started thinking about there's a swimming pool. Is there fencing?
We have a fence that's shown here on, there's a detail of it. Which plan do we show that on? Yeah.
There's a 5-foot fence, and then it connects,
Goes
right?
to there, yeah, it's here.
And then on this side,
The
that's
5
the
fence
connection.
goes up to here. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And that's the fence. So we'd rather not have a fence, but we need a fence for the pool.
Correct.
But, so we're having that fence here. Our idea wasn't to fence the whole property. It was to keep it more casual as you drove in. So I should have shown those. I should have shown that fading off, this stone fading off. The idea is to mainly keep people from wandering through parking their car and just wandering through. It's not. This is a code requirement here. This isn't a code requirement.
Okay. Fred, you had some questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just to kind of maybe help out addressing the neighbor letter. Jeff, could you point out maybe on sheet A 1.2 where the neighbor is that wrote the letter? Do we know where that neighbor is?
I just heard this letter for the first time, so I imagine it's one of. I don't know which house it is. These are the houses on Mountain Drive. Are these addressed on Mountain Drive here? Yeah.
575 Mountain Drive is the address, yeah.
I couldn't tell you. I mean, that's a surprise because this whole thing was.
Well, and the only reason I'm asking is, the issue of story poles came in their letter, and certainly, this board could ask you to do story poles, but on the other hand, we've had circumstances where people write letters in, and it turns out if you actually go out and look at the site, they don't see the site. So that's why I was trying to figure out where this person was that was writing the letter.
Fred, let me interject for a second there.
I see that.
This project's already received design approval.
Right.
And I think at the last meeting, we talked about this element where the majority of this house is still one story, and the garage is just tucked.
Yeah, the only piece of the garage is, the only two-story piece is the garage, and it's tucked into the mountain. So, and then I guess the other question, the letter came in after our hearing, so the idea about story poles came in after we looked at it, right?
The comment did, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I was just trying to clarify where is this person. And,
I believe the board's position was that didn't seem a necessity for us to make a decision. So we
Okay.
just didn't think that it was needed.
Yeah, I have
Jim?
a question about the fence. You show a fence going around on the full site. What's the design of that fence? Is
This
it a
fence?
chain link or?
No, it's right here.
So this goes around the property plus around the pool.
Well, you won't. Yeah, it's along. You don't see it really from the pool. It's along the property and it connects back to the house.
Yeah. Okay. And what kind of windows are you using? Is it
They're aluminum-clad wood windows, probably Eagle windows.
okay?
Yeah, and that's a piece from the Eagle catalog.
And are you using the traditional detailing on the windows? I know that some of them come fairly wide, and others the division is smaller.
I usually
Yeah.
use the 1-inch detail, and then
Yeah.
I use the square on the inside.
Yeah, okay.
Additional?
Is that traditional? I don't know what. Yeah. That house is over here, by the way. That 575 is not in view of. It's over by the road, so the people who would. That's downhill. You can't see it. These houses are the ones that. The closest houses.
I think just what we have to do is make a comment as a board that, we made our decision and we didn't think the requirement to have story poles was something that we needed to make the decision. So, unless somebody else feels differently about that, but I think it was this board that voted on this project. So, has Ann Marks looked at your landscape plan?
No, has she looked at it yet?
No, I don't think she is.
No.
Yes?
Is there a checklist?
For landscape?
Well, no, since we approved this at a previous meeting, is there a checklist in terms of what he needed to come before us?
That was the comments.
Okay,
that
great.
the minutes.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I wrote them down. FAR, chimney, all details, chimneys, tile, color board, landscape, stormwater management.
Very good.
Okay. So that was questions?
And then one additional question. I'm assuming we want to give this project final blessings. But on the structural sheets, it says not for construction. Is this the set going into the building department, or?
Yeah, but we say that
Okay.
until we until we get our final plan check.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So let's move into comments. That was a good comment. Does anybody have any comments regarding design, color, detailing, landscaping elements? I mean, the comments would be that Ann Marks needs to bless that plan. Anything else? Any comments on color, materials? And Denise, have you looked at the landscape plan to feel comfortable with the design generally? Okay. Brian?
I like the colors. I think they're all well suited and kind of neutral, but kind of on the fun side. I like them. My comment.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, I just, my comment is I think this is a great submittal, and I look forward to seeing the house finished, and I like the colors, and this is one of the projects I could smile on.
So let's move to a motion maybe then.
Mr. Chair, do we need to move for final approval?
Yes.
For final approval and show that it's in compliance with neighborhood compatibility.
We've already made that comment.
We've made all those, so is that all we need to say?
Well, I'm just saying it's approved and you're fine with
okay.
everything
I think
here?
that's all we need to say.
And fulfill the checklist that we provided.
Right.
Yeah. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, Jim. And under comments, we need to include in the comments about Ann Marks signing off on the fire safe plan, and that the staff is okay with the revision to that Tier 3 detail. That's all. Anybody else? Okay, let's take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Keep that sheet. It's got the marks on it. Bring them. They don't want them, so we'll take them. Yeah. This is the one we marked.
Yeah, this is the good one. Thank you. So we're going to move to item number 2 on the agenda, which is 1208 San Miguel Avenue. Jeff, did you take the color board?
We need that. We keep that.
We need a copy of it somehow.
Did he take a couple steps back? Yeah, he did take those.
So item number 2, which is 1208 San Miguel Avenue. This is a new item, so I'll read the description. This is a proposal to construct 387 square feet, second floor addition, and remodel to an existing 969 square foot one-story residence with an attached 230 square foot garage. The proposed project will total 1,586 square feet on a 5,663 square foot lot located in a non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. The proposal is 61% of the maximum floor-to-lot area ratio, and action may be taken on this project. And we'll get the drawings here in 1 second. If you could introduce yourself and your team.
My name is Tom Oxner, project architect. This is David Pintard, the owner.
Welcome. Okay, and whenever you're ready, you can start your presentation.
Okay, great. This is a, let's see, we'll get everyone familiar with the location here. La Marina from Shoreline turns into San Miguel just shortly after you turn down La Marina. This is a few houses away from that intersection, and it's on the uphill, we call it the north side of San Miguel. So the property backs into maybe a 15-20% slope up behind it. The neighborhood is your typical Mason neighborhood. It has a mix of original homes from the 50s, and then in many, maybe 1 out of 3 has been remodeled, and 1 out of 4 has a second story. I'm sure you've seen this neighborhood. I've got some aerial shots that look at it from bird's eye, from different vantage points. This is the one-story structure. It's about 1,000 square foot of habitable space with a one-car garage. It's a 6,000 square foot lot. Really hasn't been touched from its original construction. Light construction, comp shingles, very, very simple house. The neighborhood looks like this. This is the existing house, and this is looking down to the left of the existing house. This kind of turns the corner, as you can see slightly. Here's a shot looking the other direction towards the east. There's the house, and then as you can see, there's the garage, the single-car garage, and then looking a little to the east, that was a one-story house that's got a little two-story addition recently remodeled. Looking further to the west, this is the neighboring house, which is really sort of engulfed with vegetation. It's a cute little house that sits right where the San Miguel kind of turns slightly. And then further down San Miguel, this is a two-story house that's been around for a while. Let's see, looking right across the street, these are homes, one-story homes right across the street on San Miguel. And then this is looking down Los Andos, and there's another neighboring two-story home on the bottom of the page there. That should give a little neighborhood context. I've got some photos of the home I'll go through quickly so we can kind of see what we're dealing with. This is the one-story plastered home, 2x4 construction. Some windows have been upgraded. The existing frontage is original. So slab on grade, very simple home. Some more shots. This is the front, where the sidewalk meets a low retaining wall. This is a shot looking down into the side yard on the west side. There's a shed structure that's being removed that was placed without a permit. This is the side yard looking down the east side, the neighboring home there, and the gates going into the neighboring yard as well. And then this is a shot looking back into the rear yard. So the idea here is to add a master suite. It's a small second-story addition, and basically keep the existing floor plan right intact. Really very little is happening to the floor plan on the existing residence. You can see on the first floor plan here, we've got really the bulk of the house stays as it is. Of course, the interiors will be updated, but the stud walls and structure will stay the same. The staircases to the center of the house. We've got to the west. There's an existing patio which will be we'll create a new roof, hipped roof over the existing patio, and put in two small back-to-back fireplaces. Let's see, we'll replace the windows and doors, and we'll add a pair of doors out the back of the garage to give access to the rear yard. So in terms of the mass of the first floor, it's really what you're looking at now. The design approach is to put the master suite right over the center of the building and allow roof line all around it. And the stairway comes up in a position so that you can get to the balcony without going through the master. The master bedroom faces straight out to the south, we'll call it, onto a private terrace. And then to the north and to the east is the master closet and the master suite. And the existing roof line is really the same. We'll reconstruct the rear portion, but the garage roof is exactly what you're going to have. And again, this is we're at 61% of the recommended FAR with this second story addition. The massing and the architectural style is to play off of a craftsman, sort of a bungalow, maybe a little contemporary because we're mixing some materials. The idea is to go with horizontal shiplap or a horizontal board, playing with some smooth plaster. The eaves will be exposed tails, and I think they're drawn a little heavy. The intention is for 3x4 exposed rafter tails. The windows will be the prairie-style windows, as you see. We'll put a carriage house door on the garage, comp shingles. The chimneys are smooth plaster, metal casement windows, and then some heavy timber elements such as some corbels and columns. We've got some corbels occurring over the garage door, over some of the eyebrow projections. There's a few eyebrow projections that work their way around at some of the extended roof areas where we need a little sun protection. The second floor has got a guardrail which consists of a partial solid guardrail and then a narrow band of glass. And you can see that works its way around the east and the west side, but predominantly is exposed on the south side. The west elevation has a heavy timber projected covered patio. And then again, just sort of the mix of the plaster and the horizontal siding. The plates are it's 9'6" from floor to floor, 3 and 12 pitch. The max, the height we're dealing with is 21 feet, so it's a pretty low structure. Second floor, 8-foot plate. I think that's a pretty good description of it.
Anything else for your presentation?
I think that's it.
All right, thank you. Are there any staff comments on this project? It looks like it's ready for action.
Yeah, it is ready for action. I just wanted to bring one aspect up, mostly for the applicant's reference. This was discussed internally by staff, and prior to issuance of a building permit, you'll have to submit a complete demo plan to show that at least 50% of the walls, existing walls, are going to remain. Otherwise, you would have to bring your parking into compliance and provide 2 spaces. So at this point, he's provided us a letter that says that 50% or more will remain, but we need to see it in plan.
All right, thank you. At this point, also, I'll open up public comment. I don't have any slips. Is there for this project? Okay, if you could come up. Yeah. If you could sit there, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll put you. You have 2 minutes to speak on the project, and you have to fill out a slip.
Okay.
You can do that after you're done. And speak into the microphone, please. And your name for the record.
My name is Barbara Booth, and I'm a resident at 1212 San Miguel, the house directly west of this proposed remodel. And my husband and I actually were happy to see a modest remodel that was going to take place. Obviously, you have concerns when there's a change of ownership, so we were very, very happy about that. And just want to express the main concern, obviously, being to the west of them. We have privacy issues. Right now, we do have a lot of shrubbery and trees and stuff that have given us that privacy with the previous owner. I would say that's the main concern, and the areas of the house that are on that west elevation, which we have. There is an existing patio there. That's remaining the same, so I don't think there's going to be much difference. And we were just discussing how on the second story for the master suite, the staircase is the closest thing to the west, on that west wall. It's not, so it's an open space, basically. It's not a kid's room or something that's going to be staring down into our yard and encroaching on our privacy. So we were happy about that. But those are our main concerns: privacy, sunlight. It's not going to go too high.
Okay.
That's our east morning sun.
Okay.
We're that little pie in that corner, and everyone around us is higher than us. We are the low spot on that curve there. there's actually some kind of a waterway that comes from the development up above us that goes underground and drains out into the street. So we are the low spot there.
Well, thank you for your comments. And if you could, again, fill out
Yep.
that slip and just hand it to one of the
Okay.
staff members before you leave.
Sure. Thank you for your time.
Any other public comment? Not seeing any. I will close public comment and bring it back to the board for their questions.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Fred.
I'm happy the neighbor showed up because that was one of my questions. The house on your first sheet, the house to the west, do we know more or less where that is in relationship, the corner of the house in relationship to the property line? Because going out to the site, their house kind of sits, I don't know, 40 degree, 45 something to the property line. So where's that corner? Is it within the, I assume it's like the 6-foot setback or something?
It's pulled away.
It's hard to tell because of all of the shrubbery, how close it is.
So this is the subject property, and this is the neighbor property that just spoke.
And so, so one of my, let me go there. One of my questions is just in plan, where's the corner of that house in relationship to the property line?
Okay. I'm sure we can get an approximation.
And then there are just a couple more questions. On the staircase that's going up to the second floor, the way I read the plans, you're proposing no window to the west until you get to the top landing, and then there is, I assume that's a fixed window, or is that an operable window, or what's the?
I think it would be an operable window.
Okay. Right? That was basically my question.
Any additional questions, Jim?
Yeah, I had a question. What's the distance between the balcony and the property line? Looks like it's maybe 11 feet?
Well, it's 12 feet from the fence line to the building, so it would be 16, 17 feet. Let me just double check on that. It's 6 and 6, so 12, 13, yeah, about 17 feet or so. 18 maybe.
6 here, and then you said that's another 6.
So that's 12, right?
But isn't the balcony right there?
The balcony.
So
is that?
the balcony is 12 feet from the
Let
property
me go
line.
to the second floor.
This line right
Oh, yeah, to that landing, so that would be 12 feet. Yes, that is.
Okay.
Okay. Additional questions? If not, move into comments. Are you, well, it's a question. I see that your existing CMU wall, but I thought I saw another note that says you're going to put something else there, or a new wall?
Well, that's in discussion, and we've been going back and forth on that front wall. And so it's something that we're looking to either treat or we're looking to replace it. And we haven't quite sorted that one out.
Okay.
But it doesn't, there's a shot of it here. It definitely needs to be updated.
And right now, the plan is to just maintain this existing entry.
Well,
steps.
yeah, the location, these would be redone. Whether that wall is replaced or treated is kind of under discussion.
Okay.
You're kind of alluding to on your sheet 2.0, you're alluding, if you look at the elevation, it looks like you're proposing to move over the sidewalk a little bit and put a planter between there and the driveway. So, I mean, just based on
That's where I saw the note. It says new stone wall.
Yeah, and that could be a treated wall, but I to see where the setback hits that. But it's something that we're sorting through.
And then I guess one of my, maybe it should have been a question, but comment on your little westerly patio cover, which is essentially there today. There's a covered patio. Is your intention to leave that open, view from the street, or will be a little fence around that? Or I'm looking on your left-hand side of your elevation.
Yeah, the intention is to have a fence there. And,
Oh, okay.
and it shows up on on the site plan. I took it off on the elevation just to look beyond the building. But
So the way you've drawn it on the site plan, the fence would be kind of right at the patio, not out in front of it a little bit.
yes, exactly.
Well, since I started on comments, I'll just go my way and go to Jim. I guess my only two comments on the architecture. I certainly think that the bungalow style is probably in keeping with some of the other houses in the neighborhood. I am a little concerned about and I can see from a functional standpoint why you'd like to do it that way, but I'm concerned about once you get into the detailing and the code requirements for the two chimney stacks, that in reality they may become a little overpowering to the overall design and building elevation. And I'm just wondering if there's a different way to approach that. That they may become dominant in the final design of this thing. And then I'm a little concerned, the other comment is I'm a little concerned about the glass on the upper balcony. Maybe an open picket in a more traditional fashion that's kind of attuned to the bungalow style might be more appropriate. Those are my comments.
Okay. Jim?
Yeah, I was wondering about the glass. You don't have the view there is just looking across the street from the balcony.
No, there's a view. There's a view of the ocean.
Yeah. And the Craftsman style, I'd like to see you work something else, maybe with wood, vertical pickets, or some sort of. There's a lot of different designs that you could use. Being that the balcony is only 12 feet from property line, I think the requirement's 15. What does that look down on the neighbor?
Yeah, that's a good. In that, if I can respond to that comment, sure. Right? The idea of that was to create sort of a landing, and the chimney would sort of really separate it and create the intent of the code for the of the suggestion on the guidelines. But that looks into there's heavily landscaped area, so it really, I mean, it's quite a vegetative section that looks into.
So that's their front yard?
That would be their side yard, yeah.
But okay, yeah, side yard. Okay. Comments from this side of the table? Brian?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's, and I love your floor plan, and I particularly like your master bath. I love the way how you negotiated that. But the two chimneys, they stick out, kind of strange. And I don't know if there's some way to play with it. Maybe this left chimney has a combination screening wall or something because of the privacy issue. I don't know. But I'm just thinking maybe exploring the chimneys, maybe two different heights or two different styles, see if that works, something like that. That's my only comment.
Okay. Denise?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I agree with the gentleman at that end of the table about the glass railing. I don't think it's appropriate, and to this style of architecture, it's just it's too modern in my view for this Craftsman style, and that's really the only comment I have. The rest of it's really nicely done.
Okay. I would like to share those comments of. I think it is a very good project. I think the scale of it's nice. I think it's a modest project, and there's just little refinements that we started talking about. But in general, I'm very much in support of the project. I was going to ask some of the other board members how they felt about the lap siding stucco kind of mix. If anybody has a preference, is there a color palette yet that you've thought about?
I think it's fine. If you look at some of the other houses in the neighborhood, there is that different material use, and I think we'll just be interested to see what the color is. One additional comment on that side porch. We were talking about the fence on the west side porch. I think when you come back, if you could just share with us a little sketch of maybe overlaying how the fence looks in relationship to the house from both I guess the south elevation and the west elevation would be kind of helpful for us to understand how you're making an attempt to screen from the west neighbor. And I realize that there's a lot of planting on the west side of the house, either on the neighbor's property or on this property. But as we've seen in some other cases, we're not always assured that that planting will always stay there. I mean, the neighbor might decide to trim everything back at some point. So I think we probably need to kind of just be pretty careful about the privacy issue between the two properties. And I agree with Brian. Maybe a way to address the chimney issue is that the west chimney maybe look at a combination of a different style chimney and the privacy issue off the balcony might be a way to look at it.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Comment? Are they wood-burning fireplaces?
No,
or?
see, I mean, the one, they would be wood burning down below, but the one up top on the terrace would be a direct vent. So
you could...
Exactly. I've got more latitude there. And
Yeah.
the other thing, too, the thinking here, and I probably should have brought some colors in, but the stucco color is intended to be a deeper color, and it can really go away. I'll play with the colors, too, and play with the massing and the locations of the chimneys.
Great.
The glass, the reason for the glass is just that, with the 42-inch height and the view of the ocean, it's just that 42-inch height blocks off. So there's a few things that can be done. The glass has been successful because if you bring the guardrail up, you still reads as the guardrail, but the glass kind of goes away. A rail of some sort would be our next step to look at, and we can do that.
I kind of support your glass railing, as I'm one who supports what you did here. I like the way you compromise the traditional look with the modern look. It's not like a complete broadside glass railing. You've kind of combined the two, plus you've broken it up in wooden. So I could support it. It doesn't stick out and bother me like it would normally do.
I think it'll come out in the detailing. I mean, by code, I think you're going to need a cap on that glass anyway, so you already have a wood top on it. So, but if you come up with some details. Any additional comments? Okay. This project is ready for action from what I've understood.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
So we'll give it preliminary.
Project
to come
design.
Back, project design. And to come back with details of the railing and possibly the garage door is very nice. I really like that design. Maybe you can detail that a little more. Hopefully you'll be able to use that. It'd be great if you could maybe find a prefab that would look similar to that. There are some out there.
Because they're the first things to get cut, so stick with
So come back to the full board.
It's up to you.
Well, I'd like to see some of the detailing.
Okay. So in your motion, you should include NPO findings for neighborhood compatibility.
It has neighborhood compatibility. I think the quality of the architecture and materials are acceptable.
Okay.
And
so it's an indefinite continuance back to the full board.
Right.
Okay. Is there somebody that's going to second that motion? Brian? And then under comments, I think we need to speak a little bit about the screening element of the western fireplace to incorporate, the chimney and the screening so that it assists in the privacy of the neighbor to the west. And then also, I would agree that this eastern chimney, specifically because it's a gas-burning fireplace, we have lots of latitude, and if that would be probably downplayed versus this taller one, it might have a better appearance from the street.
Mr. Chair, just in comments, I'm assuming the architect will come back with resolution to the front steps and driveway and the front wall.
Correct.
And looking at our landscape architect, are you concerned about any landscape issues?
Well, landscape is always nice. I don't know what you had in mind there for the front area. Right now, it's just a big piece of green grass. But any intentions there?
Well, a lot of ideas at the moment, but I mean, it's. I think, what's there. Really, that garden wall and the configuration of the entry stairs, maybe an accent plant. I think that's as far as we were we were thinking. But we'll continue to discuss that. Next time when we come, we have the architectural details. We'll certainly have more information for that area and possibly some plans.
Okay.
Okay. So what I might say is that in the motion that we look forward to some sort of development in the landscaping on the front of the.
Can I make one comment?
It's your motion.
The stairs going up in the front, maybe what you could do is you could move the stairs over and then come up at an angle so that you create a planting area between the driveway and the stairs.
It looks like there's
Is that what you
already
have there now?
something going
Oh,
on
okay.
there. But we'll look for the refinement of the entry sequence. Any other comments to the motion? Okay. So let's take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstained. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. I'll announce a 10-day appeal period, and we'll see you back in front of the full board when you're ready. Thank you. So we'll need most of these.
Do you have a whole set of them? That's mine.
Okay, so we're going to move to item number 3, which is a new item on the agenda. It's 433 East Mitchell-Torrena Street, and I'll read the agenda description. Proposal to construct 461 square foot of basement addition to an existing 960 square foot two-story residence with a 184 square foot garage located on a separate parcel. The proposed project will total 1,420 square feet on a 2,718 square foot lot located in the Lower Riviera Special Design District. The proposal includes 23.5 cubic yards of cut and fill grading. The proposal is 81% of the maximum floor to lot area ratio, or floor to lot area ratio guideline. The project includes staff hearing officer review for requested zoning modifications. This is comments only. So, welcome. If you could introduce yourself.
Sure. Matt Eastwood from Blackbird Architects.
Hey, Matt. And your presentation.
Okay. Well, we're looking at an existing residence. It's got a half-exposed basement. It's part of a bungalow court. It's in a craftsman bungalow court. We're proposing some changes. The project was owned by a previous owner, and they had started some of the renovation work, and it was purchased mid-renovation, and we're picking up from where it was left off. And so some of the grading is just fixing drainage in the rear yard. Some of the other exterior changes is removing a fence line along the front here and moving it back to the back corner, replacing some fencing along Olive Street as well, and replacing a guardrail with a fence slash guardrail between there's a big drop off over here. So just moving on to the plan. Yes, yes.
Maybe you might want to walk us through
Sure,
the
yeah,
photos a
I
little
can
bit.
do that, yeah. So here are some street elevations. This is the residence on the corner over here. This is the, let's see, Olive Street elevation. Yep. So this is, and then the same view off of Mitchell-Torrena. And as you can see, it just it's almost identical to all the neighboring bungalows. So the renovation is to the upper level, and addition is to the lower level. So the upper level is one bedroom, living, dining, and kitchen. We're proposing a new exit out, sort of a back kitchen door to the upper terrace of the yard that then has access out onto Olive Street. On the lower level, it's adding basically two bedrooms and a little study and a bathroom with access to the backyard and then interior access to the upper level. It's a pretty compact living. Let's see the elevations. We are proposing one new skylight in the kitchen. We've put it on the slope facing the interior yard. So the exterior changes, some of the changes had already taken place. Some of the windows had been replaced, so we're replacing additional windows, keeping with the same color that was picked already. So the front of the residence facing Mitchell Terrena, there's no changes other than color changes proposed. And going around to the Olive Street elevation, there's a fireplace that's already been demolished. Deleting a window in the kitchen area, replacing a couple of windows here, adding a new window. Where there was a previous window in that location, we're just adding a slightly larger window to serve the kitchen. And then moving on to the interior facing sides of the home. This is an existing window. We're matching it in the bedroom below. We're adding windows on either side of this little projection here. That's these two windows here. And let's see, so adding the additional door downstairs here, that's the one that exits out from the study below, and that's the new back door from the upper terrace and leading out to Olive Street. Let's see, I think basically the addition is entirely within the volume of the existing residence, so there's no additional volume proposed to the residence. I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, so that concludes the presentation. Are there staff comments on this item? I do see it says zoning modifications, so we'll ask the applicant to kind of walk us through those specifics. Okay.
Sure.
At this point, I'll open up public comment. I don't have any slips. I don't see anybody jumping up. So I'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for their questions. Yes, Fred.
First at my end. First of all, this is the sad little house that's finally going to get some attention. Every time I drive by it, I want to stop and go fix something on it. Question, on your elevation studies, I'm trying to figure out, I couldn't figure out where it was. There is on your west elevation, there is what appears to be a fence element. Where is that in plan?
Yes, that's the step between the upper and the lower yard. It's basically a guardrail serving the drop-off.
So it's right here.
Yes. Okay. I'll show you just on the site photos. We've got an existing retaining wall that's in. Here we go. So that's the existing retaining wall. That's the fence that we're replacing, basically, and dressing up this retaining wall in the process.
All right. Thank you. And then, and I know all of these houses kind of are literally on top of each other. But was there any discussion or thought about putting even a set of high windows or window on your west elevation in a little alcove that I guess was on the plan was a bookcase, cabinet? See in the dining room?
Yeah, it's
the little bump out there is?
It's an existing hutch, and it never had windows before, and so we're just proposing to reuse it as cabinetry again.
Okay. And the only reason I ask, it's always nice. You know, these little bungalows tend to kind of fall on the same framework of Christopher Alexander and his great notion of how to do houses. And he always talks about having windows on two sides of rooms if you can get away with it. And it just seems it might be nice if you could have at least a little, maybe peekaboo window somewhere on that west elevation just to get light as it moves through the day across the house. Might add something to it. That's it.
Okay. Additional questions for the applicant?
Yes, Chair.
Brian.
The front stairway to the porch.
How was you envisioning that being constructed?
It would be redwood stringers, and we're proposing composite tongue and groove decking for the porch, and we would do the same thing. So it would be painted risers, painted stringers, and then just sort of a wood-colored composite tongue and groove decking.
What would the railing be?
The railing would be wood painted.
Like a 2x6 or a one or
So I think there's 1x1 pickets, so maybe slightly larger, and then the stanchions would be a little bit bigger than that. So we haven't gotten into full detailing of that yet, but just having a little bit of hierarchy of the little pickets and the larger stanchions.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Denise, any questions? No. Matt, can you walk us through what zoning? Why are you going to a zoning officer?
Sure, yes. I think it's easier to illustrate in plan, but so let me go to the plan. So what we're proposing is new square footage within the two front yards. So the one facing Olive Street over here and the one facing Mitchell Terrain over there.
And this is all underneath the house?
It's all underneath the house within the volume of the existing residence. So those would be the two, basically expanding within the setbacks. And then there's a few other items is when we start changing elements within those setbacks, such as adding a window, deleting another window, and adding this, the little kitchen door in the back. Those all fall under that as well. Requiring the and also that fence that you asked about before, that's within the setback as well, and it exceeds 3.5 feet because it's going down and dressing up the retaining wall. So,
okay. Any other changes to windows that, other than on this Olive Street side? Anything on the front side? Is it popping up as a?
It's already been changed, so. None of those are requiring a modification. Perhaps this window here, I'm not sure, because it's right at the setback line.
Okay, so it's a possibility that that could get it. Okay. So we got our questions out. How about comments? How's the board feeling about this proposal? Brian?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I guess my only comment is I'd like to see how you detail that little
stairway coming up, because based on this, it looks kind of spindly compared to the style of the house, and I'll look forward to seeing how that stairway is detailed out. And I mean, I'm afraid it's going to be two stringers and boards, and then how they kind of a 70s. I just like to see that avoided and kind of study this period of time, how they actually constructed stairways to porches so it just isn't harmonious with the style of the house. Otherwise, I think it's great.
Okay.
I love it.
One comment I will make is, I don't know if everybody recognized, but this is going to be your house.
Actually, no.
No.
I do live in this bungalow court. It's another house right over here, but
Okay.
yeah.
So it's the same name as.
I'm Matt Eastwood, so Matthew Bio is the owner.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got the same first names.
Gotcha. Okay. Any additional comments, Fred?
As I said, this is the sad little house you always want to help, so I'm really happy that it's getting helped. I would like to see, and I assume it's when you come back with more of your working drawings, we'll get a section through that stone wall and fence area so somebody kind of understands why it looks the way it needs to look. And I agree with Brian, just to make sure that the front staircase gets detailed in such a manner that's part of how this house was originally put together. Other than that, I think this is going to be a huge improvement.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's going to look great. I think a good landscape plan would make a big difference. You show a lot of planting strips, and I think around the corner, a good landscape plan would look great, I think.
Okay. So Denise, you're kind of agreeing with that, I'm sure?
That's what I was going to bring up. I was looking at this little key here to see, water-wise perennials, ground covers, shrubs and perennials. It would be nice to know what some of those are, and I guess you're planning on turf back in here, and what kind of turf you're planning, if it's just regular or something drought tolerant.
presumably drought tolerant. Yeah.
All right.
So, following up on the landscaping, I'm quite familiar with this house. One of the better improvements is obviously that fence line that came through now. Is you're moving that fence back, so all of this area here can be inviting and green, and that's going to be a huge improvement on that front side, and actually gives the illusion that this house actually has some property, because it's almost nothing. It's right on the sidewalks most of the time. So again, we can't make a motion for any approval, but we need to give some comments to the staff hearing officer, and what I'd like to get are specific comments regarding the zoning issues that the staff hearing officer is going to be reviewing, which Matt talked about, were some of these areas being in front of the setback, even though they're underground. And some of the other items would be putting in or modifying some of the windows and doors in those setbacks that exist now. So somebody...
Mr. Chair, if I might also just add that I believe the parking is also another modification. They only have one off-site parking per prior development agreement, but the proposal involves more than 50% of additions. So rather than trying to find a parking solution, they're asking to keep their one parking space.
Okay, so how does the board feel about that?
Mr. Chair, I'll start with a comment on the parking. I think this is one of these cases, and again, I think we as a board have tended to look at all of these things on a case-by-case basis. I think this is one of these cases where we have an extraordinary effort we talk about having folks design small houses that are really quite exquisite, and I think this is one effort to do that. So I don't think we should, at least at this board, should penalize the applicant for the parking space, given where this house is. We talk often about people being able to use less of their automobiles and use more public transit. This sits at one of those really high-impact intersections, Olive and Mitchell-Torrena. They have a lot of access to transportation. So I'm kind of feeling it's not important to penalize them for the parking. So that's my opinion. And then with regards to the setbacks in the basement, I think this is a really wise way to use space efficiently. So I could support, at least to the hearing officer, that this is a good thing to do. In addition, the fence that's in the setback and the little openings, the window openings, et cetera, I think are all appropriate to the style and nature of what they're trying to do.
Anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm curious, where is this parking space? I'm looking for it and can't find it.
If I can direct you to the vicinity map, it's mid-block.
Oh.
There's a
look at that.
a tiny little property.
Cute.
It's just an agreement, I believe.
There's 12. There's 12 separate little properties, each having a garage, and then there's a shared 1/12 shared area that's basically gets you access to that and some additional open air parking.
So there's an alley back here, I take
Yes,
it.
yeah.
And it's just a space. It's not covered.
It is covered. It's a
it is
full
covered.
garage. Yeah.
Oh, all right. I agree with Mr. Sweeney. I think that in this case, this house has been needing improvement for so long, and it has so many constraints that I wouldn't think to add another. And it looks like a lovely project.
Brian, you concur?
Yes.
Jim, you concur? Okay, so what we're looking for is somebody to make a motion, again, directed to the staff hearing officer, kind of recapping Fred's comments and some of Denise's comments for basically our blessing.
So can I make my comments as a motion if staff got those notes? Reiterate? Okay, so as a motion, that the board in general feels that project shouldn't be penalized for any additional parking spaces and is satisfied the agreement in place for the one parking space is sufficient, that the proposed use of additional basement area for living quarters into the setback line is acceptable, that the various openings and the fence located on the north side of the proposed project is acceptable, even as they sit in the setback line. That we would request that the architect, when he returns, pay particular attention to the detailing of the front steps and railings. That consideration be made to some additional window openings if possible, and that attention be made a little more specifically to the landscape elements of the plan. Make it everything?
I think so.
That's it.
And your motion is to have the applicant, once going to the staff hearing officer, come back to which board?
I'm almost
Which
thinking
meeting?
I'm almost thinking this could go back to consent calendar.
Okay.
I see people saying yes.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, and then comments under that motion. Full board, parking. Obviously, all of the issues of detailing and light fixtures and colors and that sort of thing will apply before you'll get full approval, but you're mostly on the way, it looks like, anyway. Anybody else? Comments of the motion? Okay, let's take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And motion carries unanimously. So we'll see you when you get through the staff hearing officer.
Pictures are already in. I can hand them to you right now.
I'll be the one that can run anyway.
So Matt, do you want some of these plans, or just you got to keep one of them?
Denise, I have one. If you just hand me the pictures, you can have the other two separate.
Oh, there's one plan.
No, I have another.
Oh, you had one. I'm sorry. All right,
You have those two separate.
Oh, okay. All right.
You need three for the medium, but then we keep one. For
Okay. Great.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Nice to
Yeah.
see you, Matt.
Good to see you. Good seeing you too.
We're going to move to item number 4. We're 5 minutes early, but we'll get set up and we'll be right on time. This is 482 Lou Dillon. It's a new item, so I'll read the description. This is a proposal to construct a new 2,483 square foot two-story residence with an attached 599 square foot garage on a 2.26 acre lot located in the Hillside Design District. Site improvements include an entry gate, fountain, bioswale, concrete swale, stone garden walls, flagstone patios, removal of 2 eucalyptus trees, walkways, and landscaping. The proposal includes 186 cubic yards of cut and fill grading. The proposal is 54% of the maximum allowed floor-to-lot area ratio guideline. This project requires compliance with a Planning Commission resolution. This is comments only, so we'll get the applicants up here.
Good evening. Give you each one here. We have enough sets of plans. I have one more with me if you need another one.
We only need 3. It looks like
Everybody's got one.
if you could introduce yourself and your team.
My name is John Eisenbeiss. I'm the architect for the owner of the property, Terry and Angela Becerra. To my right is Sam Maphis, landscape architect.
Welcome, and your presentation, please.
Thank you. Yes. The location of this property is Lou Dillon Lane, 1482 Lou Dillon. It's off of Salinas, just west of the Montecito Country Club. The perspectives you see on the title sheet are representative of the west elevation as you come up the driveway at the top, and the east elevation at the bottom. We also have a color study done over to my left that shows pretty much finished materials, Spanish, Santa Barbara blue. So again, Spanish tile roof, plaster finish. and the Santa Barbara blue awnings and window details, wood corbels. We have a colonnade through the parking area and driveway area to the entry, and then a lower entry. The design intent here is to lead the design with one-story space in the front and on both sides for the benefit of all the neighbors who don't have to look up at a large two-story space. Then we tucked the house back into the hill and got as much yard space as we could for the open yard requirement.
Okay.
Square footage is 2,480, where are we here? Coverage. 2483.4.
Okay.
This is the last lot at the end of this property. You come down a very long driveway to the buildable envelope. And here you can see the footprint of the house tucked into the side of the hill, an existing oak tree. And what we're intending to do really is take advantage of panoramic ocean views here from the second floor. Well, we have met with the neighbors already. We had a meeting with them yesterday, had a good turnout, and I think a very good response. It's the enlarged plan. You can see at the lower floor. Again, driveway, colonnade, entry here into the lower level. We have some on-site pathway, boulders and rocks, very natural materials. The lower retaining wall, this portion is a curb really, and a little bit of retention here would be your mechanically reinforced earth or your Allen block. On the back side would be your traditional retaining walls done with CMU, and then probably plastered with a stone cap where they're visible. This is the original survey. Stop me if you have any questions. This is Sam Mathis' preliminary concept drawing for the landscape plan. And Sam has a beautiful colored version he'll present for you.
Underneath there if you're ready to go to landscape.
It's up to you if you want to go there first before the building, or
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Okay.
It tells us a lot about the building. So as John mentioned, we're at the end of this long drive, and one of the important things, of course, was screening for the neighbors below and for our property. The screening that we've looked at, well, let me back up just a minute. The existing materials that we'll be keeping, certainly this big oak tree that John mentioned, an avocado tree. There's multiple citrus that are planted in this area now that we'll be taking up and transplanting into an existing orchard that's in the kind of foreground as you approach the house upslope. So we're going to add those citrus into that area and add some more through this access on the back, as John mentioned, to the top deck area from the outside. We do, coming up from Lou Dillon, there's a beautiful existing drive that has a lot of natural stone walls and Kentia palms and cycads. It's a very handsome entrance approach to this property, and we want to use that theme as kind of our basis of the design of a water-wise, certainly fire-resistant landscape, but kind of in the semi-tropical realm of theme with the Kentia palms, cycads, agave. We also want to use natives and low-growing ground covers for our fuel management, such as Myoporum and the low-growing Ceanothus. The screening below is important for the neighbors that, as John mentioned, that we met with and have worked on very strategically in terms of sight lines and privacy for these backyards, for us looking down and for them looking back. And the intent is to use a Prunus lioni or a Rhamnus alaternus, an Italian buckthorn type of tough hedge that we can let get up to about 10 feet, 12 feet, which is, I think, the ideal height for this important screen below. We do have existing cypress and existing eucalyptus in key spots that we do want to keep on the uphill slope, but we are going to be taking a few out to snug the hill back into this slope, because most of the back of the downstairs, or the first floor, is up against the slope and retained. We do have a small yard space because it is a very narrow bench on the east side, which has some nice views. We want to improve that with some open jointed flagstone-like paving. We also want to increase, as John mentioned, with a little bit of retaining, about 4.5 foot wall in the front to kind of create a sense of entry and a little bit of openness as we approach the house. We'd be using probably permeable pavers on the driveway, probably Belgard. We'd be enhancing the paving with Mega Bergerac style, I think. I've brought some pictures to show the kinds of planting. Again, real quickly, the Kentia palms, the Trachycarpus palms, the Acacia stenophylla, and maybe the olive. But much of the trees that I show here are going to remain, so we don't need to embellish much except for maybe the palms. We'll be using, again, ligustrum as well as the Italian buckthorn for hedging. The Rus ovata is what's really growing on this back slope, so we'll be adding more of that to kind of help retain and look for some substantial erosion control in the upper slope. We do have a concrete drainage swale to make sure that the house is protected from the sheet flow off this big slope that's behind, but it'll be concealed for the most part with our low-growing ground cover. We'll be using Ceanothus, Yankee Point, and rosemary, and some acacia rhodolens to actually hold the bank, but the main ground cover will be the low Myoporum. Accents would be lavenders and agave and some succulents, some low-growing spreading roses and bougainvilleas on this upper wall and lower wall to kind of cascade over and add to the beautiful theme that John and the clients have asked us to give them something that's real Santa Barbara. The front gates, kind of the first impression as you come in, I think our idea is to have stucco with an iron gate right here that'll be very open. And we'll have a small stucco 2-foot wall with a stone cap on this upper side with our bioswale. So that just gives you an idea of the theme. This is a little bit of a theme on another project we've done of this kind of open walkway with a little bit of a header on the uphill side, but stone steps and just a real more organic approach to the back slope because it is so narrow. So, all right, it's kind of the general theme of the site.
Okay, so let's move to the architecture.
And we have included in this submittal a copy of the PC resolution. I don't think we're really going through that today.
If you could actually kind of highlight what items were, because I don't have a copy of the PC report yet. Okay, but if you know what we're addressing, I want to make sure that we meet their guidelines.
Okay.
The requirements.
Mr. Chair, if I was going to do a staff presentation. Just
Okay,
go briefly.
we'll do that
Let me
after
know
this
when
then.
ready.
Okay.
So we have Len Erie as our civil engineer. Len's done all the preliminary grading and drainage for the site already for the road, which is being expanded to 16 feet for the PC resolution for access to the site. Again, we have drainage swale across the back to catch downhill water, again for the PC resolution, which meet that requirement. I think if we're in reference to the resolution, Sam has addressed most of the screening and landscape elements as well. These are a couple of little details. We're trying to use naturally stacked gravity walls where possible. Yeah, we have some architecture. So as you approach the site, you come in through the entry to the entry foyer. The entry foyer has 3 vertical windows here that you can see from the upstairs plan in the staircase up to the upper level. We've situated the living room, kitchen, and master suite on the upper level for all the views. Down at the lower level, then, of course, we have the garage, the foyer, the laundry room, and 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. On the upper level, as you ascend up the staircase, you have the 3 vertical windows. There will be a light well here, landscaped per Sam's recommendations when we get to that level. You enter directly into the living room, which has double pairs of sliding doors, again for the ocean views, a wraparound deck for that one-story element. You enter then into the master suite, which is very ample, a master closet, and master bath. Again, a wraparound deck at the master suite for the one-story element, and the roof lines of the entry foyer and the lower bedrooms are the one-story element on the lower level. The roof plan is very simple, straightforward, gable. Just this being the entry, the lower bedrooms, living room and kitchen, master suite. These are our elevations. This is the elevation facing south. So here's your entry, the colonnade coming up to the entry. The main deck here, the living room, kitchen windows, master bedroom windows with a protruding iron grill, and then master bath windows. This is the north elevation up against the hillside. Really all you would see then would be the windows in the stairwell, master bedroom, and a couple of others. The elevation at the top is your elevation from the driveway. So again, simple gable roof, a wooden trellis over the main deck. We have corbelled overhang and arched colonnade. Above we have also a loggia, just to carry the line straight up and carry the columns up, changing from 22 inches below to probably 16 inches above. The east side would be the master suite, again with a wood trellis over the deck, and trying to keep a very simple Spanish human scale feel to the architecture. These are our building sections. This is your longitudinal section. This is a section through the garage area and the living room, showing your archways and your loggia. Again, then you can see the hillside and where you're retaining, and the small retaining wall in the front yard and the property line. This elevation is through the east side of the house where you have the lower bedrooms, master bath, master closet. Again, the short curb wall, your retained earth at that elevation in the back side. And that's kind of it.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a pretty good overall presentation. At this point, I'll bring it to Michelle, who I think has some staff comments on this project.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to bring to the board's attention this lot was created as part of a subdivision that was approved by the Planning Commission in 2003. The parcel has a very strict development envelope, which I believe they touched on. It also restricted the size of the residence to 2,500 square feet, which they're in conformance with. And particularly just wanted to note that there's a few items, such as the guest parking that's currently identified as located in the front setback that has to be removed from the setback, and all site work, walls, paths, exterior, that's located outside of the building envelope must also be removed. So those are just some items that are needing to be further refined in future review.
I'd like to comment on those if I could. Could we flip back over to the site plan? Yep, looks like you got a unstapled version in there. No, we can use this. This is fine. So I'm understanding you, yes, you're right. You're correct about the setback in the guest parking area. The intent here with the curved portion that's built outside the envelope is our solution to balance the site. The existing development envelope that is in the resolution has no provision for balancing the site. The previous design that set that envelope had 390 cubic yards of cut and export and only less than 100 of fill. This design is a balanced site. We have, I think it's 100 and, I'd have to look at the front sheet, 190 cubic yards of cut and balanced fill. And the way we achieved it then was this portion here. So my email to Danny Cato was to ask him how I could approach this. And his comment to me was that if we can reach a determination of substantial conformance, that he would entertain that.
Okay. And I see my colleagues, I wanted to point out, especially on camera, the development envelope, just to make sure that we all understand that. Is there a plan that,
We just,
what sheet is that on?
T.02, Glenn. I don't think mine shows the development envelope is strong.
it's kind of deceiving because this doesn't have arrows on it.
Here it is.
What this is doing,
Right
these
here.
curvy lines are pointing at the line of the development envelope.
This dashed line is your envelope right here.
It's this one right here.
Yes. Correct.
Coming around like so, and then up here. It's a little confusing.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about.
Mhm.
Okay. I'd like to open up.
I'd like to make one more comment. It didn't appear to me from the diagram on the PC resolution that their requirement for open space had been planned for. I couldn't really see how you'd even get the requirement met. So again, by achieving this bulb out, if we can get substantial conformance there, we more than provide for the open space requirement.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to open up public comment. And Sam, if is it possible you could move to that seat, and then we'll have that seat open for public. I've got two slips. In no particular order, Kathy Morgan, if you could come up to this chair and speak into the mic, and you'll have 2 minutes to make comments. If you could just speak right into the mic.
Sure. My name is Kathy Morgan, and I live at 473 Scenic, which is this lot here, number 8.
Number 8. So on camera, you're right here.
Correct.
Okay.
My main concern, as well as I think a lot of us downslope neighbors, is with the grading and the height. It's really hard to tell from the landscape design and the plan, but I have some photographs that show just how high the dirt level is behind the back gate. And so this was taken from my back patio and backyard.
Is the fence approximately the property line?
Yes.
Okay.
But as you can see where the gate is falling down, the dirt level is just very, very high. It's almost at the top of the gate there. And my impression is that this retaining wall is going to raise the building pad another 4.5 feet.
We'll ask that question.
Okay.
We'll go through that.
But I'm not sure what sort of grading has gone on that property over the past several years. But a lot of the dirt is loose and is pushing the gate over, and it seems like they've made the building pad to maximize views and height. But what my concern is just that it puts that house just that much higher over the neighbors. And all the houses on Scenic are quite modest. I think most of our homes are 1,500 square feet, 50s and 60s style homes. So when you drive up Harbor View and turn onto Scenic Drive, this house will be very visible in the neighborhood, and I think that it will definitely stand out as just a different, very different style, very different scale than the modest homes on our street. other than that, I think it's beautiful, and I think you have done a lot of work to mitigate the the setback and everything. But another thing that I think that the pictures show is that a 10 or 15-foot screening landscape won't really do much to mitigate the views from Scenic Drive.
Okay, thank you for your comments. We got to keep that.
Yeah.
Okay. And Bruce Bartlett is the only other slip. If anybody else is wanting to speak, if write a slip. 2 minutes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Board. I'm the neighbor that is most easterly at the very point below this property.
Right here?
Right there. And I've seen all iterations of this project since it started in 2003, and this is actually the project that got me interested in public service and onto Planning Commission, so it's been an important one for me. I think this is the best iteration that we've seen. This is now the third house plan. I just want to make sure that you're aware of the Planning Commission resolution from 2003, that Planning Commission realized this was a very constrained site because of the earthquake fault and the proximity to the neighbors with a very narrow building envelope. What's different about this hillside site, it's not like the Riviera where you have a street where you have houses above and houses below. Here you have a driveway, a house above that looks into everybody's private backyards. So it's not like the houses below have a street frontage to buffer you. So, and their building pad is approximately 20 feet above the backyards of the houses below, and then obviously doing a two-story house that's upside down with all the living area and decks on the upper floor, you're up, 30 feet above and in very close proximity. So that was the reason Planning Commission wanted a small house. They envisioned this as the little house at the end of the lane, and that's why I was limited to 2,500 square feet. I appreciate the applicant meeting with us and working with the neighbors. I think they've done a good job with the landscape and the design of the house. I think the questions that I had that we expressed to the owner was to kind of justify or clarify the difference between the 2,500 square foot net that they're proposing and the gross, which is like 31% higher, which seems like a very big jump. That would equate to like 4-foot thick walls. So I think that the gross footage appears a little bit high, and I share some of the concerns that were mentioned by staff in terms of the proximity of walls to that lower property line, but I do think the landscape plan is making a good attempt at creating privacy for the neighbors. We all want privacy, and I'd like to work with the applicant to achieve that in a cooperative way. So those would be my comments, and I think a little clarity on the landscape plan as to what's being saved along that southerly property line in terms of trees, and the fencing that you saw in the photographs is obviously falling over because of the grading that's occurred against the backside of the fence.
Thank you very much.
But I think it's greatly improved over the prior iterations.
All right, thank you. At this point, I'll close public comment. Oh, we got one other letter.
I think, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to acknowledge a letter that was received from Al Fink. He's the neighbor property owner at 1480 Lou Dillon Lane, just to the west of this lot. And he just wanted to show his support of this project. He says that the plans reflect a house of modest scale and strong articulation and positioned on a site to maximize the privacy of both houses.
All right, thank you. So now I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for their questions, please. My first question has to do with, are there some site sections that go through our property and through the lower properties?
No.
We do not have the site section all the way through the lower south property line.
We're
close.
The conditions vary from house to house.
So we'll need multiple sections.
You would have to have, hopefully, one. But no, we haven't done those for not knowing which one to cut. However, I did do a very thorough photo survey that gives you all that information. I have done after our meeting with the neighbors, they had asked us to take more photographs, and so I have an augmented series of photographs and a map to show you where they were taken from.
Okay.
I'd like to address a couple of the comments that were made from the public, if I could, that might help the board understand that south property line. I think what was brought to our attention was some of the slough that's coming down that slope. Our intent is to pull that material that's leaning on that bottom of that fence away and clean that up. There's no need for that to be built up. Our hedge, as we had mentioned, the privacy hedge will be planted at the existing grade at the bottom of that fence. We hope to pull all that dirt back. We are going to create that Allen block wall that would allow us that open area, only 4 feet high, but that's going to be a good 7 feet back of that property line. So all the area against the property line will be cleaned up and that slough will be pulled away. And in terms of the existing plant material, we're saving the oak. There's a big Eugenia that's healthy, and we'll keep that. That I think helps the neighbors below. We'll be planting that hedge at a substantial size as well. So the intent is to leave the material that's doing the good screening. The only thing that's down there, I think, that we do and will probably want to remove is a Myoporum that's got the psyllid disease that's over on this side. And it's all wrinkled and kind of going backwards, and unfortunately, the best long-term solution would be to remove it and replace it with new, healthy plant material that would do better than this sick Myoporum that's there now. So our intent is to keep the bulk and the big material as healthy as we can all along that property line and augment and supplement and infill, if you will, good, solid plant material along the whole south side.
So Sam, this plan was dictated off of a survey of existing features?
Correct.
So all of the trees that you labeled as, or the survey listed as existing, obviously are staying. Are there any trees that have been removed? And I know you're talking about this Myoporum, but...
The Myoporum is right here, the existing Eugenia tree that's of substantial size here, and I think that pertains to one of the neighbors that might be the one who spoke. We want to keep that because that does do a good screening and privacy, sightline protection for them. Some of these other plants that are shown are on the neighbor's property, and of course those would stay. And we, as Bruce had mentioned, we'll be cooperative as much as we can with all those neighbors, as that privacy is very important for both property owners.
I'd also like to comment on a couple of the issues brought up already, if I could.
Okay, go ahead.
I think there might be a misconception of the drawings.
If you could speak into
There might be a misconception from the drawings in that we are not raising this house 4.5 feet high.
That's where I think a building section, site sections will...
We have 4 building sections that,
Well, site
do
section,
show it.
I think that we need to go right through the property, through multiple neighbors down slope.
Okay.
I think that's the first thing I would look for. So, was there any other?
Yeah, I could address Bruce's comment about net and gross square footage. I've done a couple of diagrams here. There's the first floor gross, second floor gross, and I think the misunderstanding is that in the gross I've included the loggia and the entry, and on the second floor, anything under roof. So that adds a lot of square footage to your gross calculation.
So it's not okay.
Yeah, and so here are your net, first floor net, and your second floor net. And I did check the calculations, they're correct.
Okay, thanks. Questions by board members?
As I'm looking here, it says that it's in a high fire area, and I didn't see any zones or anything on your landscape plan, and you'll have to get it through Ann Marks, I suppose.
Certainly, the intent would be that she'll see everything in that 30-foot ring as well as the 70-foot ring. We're being very respectful of. That's why there's no trees close in.
I'm just curious. I don't know what she'll do with this continuous hedge line along here. But something to run by her.
Yes.
And see about that. And that's also part of the resolution. So I was just going through these, and the only other one that struck me, one second if you'll bear with me. Is any fencing going on?
No.
No fencing on the property? Okay. And then it says no construction or improvement on the real property which would lead to soil disturbance shall be allowed in the area for which the development rights have been restricted.
I think this is the area here that we're kind of talking about. We got to have the board member just weigh in on their opinions on that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Questions?
Comments?
Questions?
Two questions. Do we have photographs of this area?
Yes.
You said you took photographs.
Yes. I have a legend here.
We need to put it right here.
Okay. Here's the legend and numerous photographs. This photograph shows the elevation difference between the site on these and the adjacent property. As it was noted before, the neighbors below are a good 20 feet below. This also shows on this photograph, shot at grade by the oak tree, and you'll notice you can barely see the chimney, let alone the top of a roof.
If your eyesight was on the ground.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The other photographs are all labeled O through P per this diagram. So you can, let's see, that's a duplicate set. So A and B, this is from Old Coast Highway by the Montecito Country Club Golf Course. And you would really not be able to see this building from that location. I'm sure if you went up and down the highway, you could find a rooftop somewhere. This is at the intersection of Scenic Drive and Harbor View. Again, you would not be, even with just the existing landscaping, be able to see this project. Mainly because the oak tree, which you see here, because it's got a little blight going on, reference to this spot, and the house being further to the left behind this existing landscaping. Then at the neighbor's request, I did a photo series study of the whole streetscape on Scenic Drive. And really the only thing to ascertain from these is that you can't see the site from Scenic Drive. This photo is taken from the master bedroom deck elevation. We have the opportunity with that hillside to walk up to the elevation of the first floor. So this photograph is taken from the correct elevation of the master deck, looking down at the property that was, I forget the address, but the woman who gave a testimony earlier. This is looking at her property from that deck. It's a large Eugenia, I think it is?
This is a large Eugenia that I referred to previously that's very healthy, and that will remain. This is that Myoporum that's in decline right next to it. But that's where we'd be supplementing along this whole stretch, of course, the lower south line, additional and very substantial screening. But this will stay, the oak will stay, and as much healthy material along that line will stay.
Make the site then. I'll have to turn it to tell you. No, this is, well, that could be a far end of the road, way down at the end of the road. This is the last two properties down that way. That would be, if you're looking at the plot, that would be right about here. Okay. Yeah, 449, 449.
Okay.
And the last couple were also a request of a neighbor. This is the lot right here, 457, and she had requested we take a couple of photos in that area. The only thing that would be visible there would be the parking area, which is now going away, the guest parking. So really there is no view of a structure from this location. This is the view, again, from the master bedroom deck at the same elevation of that corner lot where Mr. Bartlett has his property. That's, I believe, his bougainvillea there. And this is a photograph from the neighbor's driveway looking across his backyard at the site.
So are these trees on his property or?
Pardon me for a minute. No, that's the Eugenia on our property that we were talking about earlier.
That on site is right here.
Right. So that photo is taken from right where the stamp is, this way. These are additional photos of the address at 457.
I just need to put them on camera, that's why I keep
Okay,
moving.
I'm sorry. I'll get it.
This is some of the citrus here that we'll be transplanting that are up on this top slope edge of where the house footprint will be. And this is the oak that is the prominent oak that's beautiful multi-trunk, but it's got the oak moth.
Is the arborist taking a look at that yet?
No.
I mean, is it?
It's a healthy tree. It's got the oak moth taking the leaves and doing its thing, and it should be able to shed them off. But it's healthy. It's a very substantial tree. Will be taken care of.
Okay. Thank you for those pictures.
Oh, I had
More questions.
More questions to staff. It appears some of our discussion is going to center around this desire to take the land out over that development line. Do you have a little background of how that development line was set, or will they have to, if we generally might agree with that notion, do they have to go back and get a modification? What's the detail?
Yes, so the development envelope was established by the Planning Commission during the 2003 Planning Commission approval of the subdivision. At this point, it's in debate, as John mentioned. They could proceed with a substantial conformance determination that would possibly be processed by staff, or maybe a PC level substantial conformance determination to determine whether or not the site improvements meet the objection and intent of the original Planning Commission resolution.
Denise?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just had a question for the client. How many, is this the Eugenia that's sort of covered with vines and everything growing up into it, and is that the Myoporum in question? This is from Miss Kathy Morgan's pictures that she brought in.
This could be.
Yeah.
From that perspective, I haven't seen it from that location.
Yeah, and how many, besides the Myoporum, any other trees going that you can see within that block of foliage there?
Going, meaning
Like,
taken out?
yes, that you're taking out? 'Cause some of them look like they might be right in your building envelope.
Well, I think these are those citrus trees that are lined up right here, right now, on the site, and those need to be removed just for our front building south elevation line. Those we're going to be putting here. And then we're bringing in palms and other vines and things on the front. But we also, at the base of that fence on our side, will be growing up our hedge. That'll take the place of what you're seeing maybe in the foliage here. But that, I think, is the Eugenia, and this is the Myoporum. That's a personal health, at least on our side.
Yeah, and of course, the reason I'm asking is that once that Myoporum goes, then there's going to be quite a lot of the house exposed to view from below. I mean,
Maybe
it will
initially,
be.
but
Yeah.
the intent is the new landscaping would.
And my other thought, I guess I was going into comments, so would be that the further upslope you plant this, the better for the residents below, because of course that's going to be,
higher.
It's going to be higher. It'll screen the house a little better.
Yeah, I actually had a comment or a question regarding the hedge, because I think Sam talked about the height of the hedge, and I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going down a little slippery slope here.
Yeah.
By zoning ordinance, what is the height limit of this hedge? 8 feet?
8 feet within, on a property line or within the setback.
So I think you maybe said 10 before, that's why. And that's where I think some of these site sections showing where hedges and trees go are going to be really valuable for us to evaluate privacy issues between the neighbors. So, Brian, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. On sheet 2.01, back we have
The laundry room and the floor plan. Is this a retaining wall in the back here, and then you have the laundry wall kind of incorporating the retaining wall? Is that what's happening?
Yes, it's a structural wall for the master suite above, and is retaining.
So, okay. I see. So, what is this? Is this just like an open room below?
Yeah, not a room at all. It's just open. A place to put landscape elements, fertilizer, lawnmowers.
I'm trying to point to
Shovel.
what you're doing to, so it's on camera.
Yes, that room there, correct.
Right. And it's not roofed, right?
No.
Okay.
Well, it's got a
got
second
the
floor above it.
Second floor above.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
but
it's
it does
spaced.
not have a finished floor. It's just dirt.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Questions, additional?
Yeah, I'd like, I know we talked about the site, but I have some
Fred?
architectural questions. Am I reading this right? There's a 3 windows shown at the staircase, and if I look at the north elevation, the back elevation, those essentially are following the staircase down? And then it's hard to tell from the drawings, but are some of these windows casement windows, sliders? What's the intent?
Fixed windows.
So they're all fixed windows?
No, just the staircase windows.
Okay, no, but I mean, just in general, what is there
They
a
will.
combination of
Casement.
sliding or casements?
Casement, sliding doors at the decks,
Mm-hmm.
and then all the other windows in bedrooms and other rooms would be casement.
Or casement windows, okay. Thank you.
Okay. So any other questions? If not, move to comments. Questions?
Some more questions. I see this wonderful thing here, and I just needed some clarification, because what I'm seeing, I think, is the fence line that the lady that spoke was speaking of down below. Is that correct? It's
like
down
it,
at the property line, and then does this bench out here and then come up?
it's a little distortion from the
It's distortion
photograph,
from the.
yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But and this is this
That's actually a straight line concrete swale that's existing.
Exits to the drainage water
Correct.
now.
Oh, okay, I was going to say, is that like a? It doesn't look like it's
It's maybe 2 feet wide. It's a little concrete flat swale that runs
Flat
the site.
swale.
Flat swale. I mean, it drains to the
Wonder how effective
west.
that is. Huh? Okay, so it's a little bit deceiving as far this really just slopes continuously down. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then a little bench out probably for this,
Right.
but that's it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's move to comments.
Well, I'd like to see some 2 or 3 sections, especially where we have the stone retaining walls. Be through here.
Okay.
And then I think the grade at the neighboring properties should be called out.
Is there a survey that actually?
It is called out
Okay.
on the sheet here, because I just found it.
Okay. But go ahead, Jim.
I think
So
it might be
I
that
think-
loose sheet that's in
Yeah, I
in
think
there.
a couple sections through where the retaining wall is would be a big help.
Here we are. We've got. Well, was this it? This wasn't it. It was when we found that 102.
So, Jim, I'd like to follow up on that. I mean, I would like to see site sections from the entire property down to the buildings in several locations.
How about if I extend the building sections that exist? There's one here, and there's one here.
As long as it goes all the way through and then it shows accurately retaining walls and screening and property lines and.
Well, we don't have topo work on these properties, but
Right.
we'll get a good idea of the adjacent grade and the improvements and the general
We really
SOA
don't have
analysis.
any information at this time.
We
of-
don't either.
Of
That's what we're
topos or
asking
retaining
for.
walls on these properties.
Excuse me. But you do have fence. You've got some 2 topo marks there, 2 spot elevations, 102.97 on C3, and 100 kind of passes along the property line
Right.
down here. So
Some of these properties continue to slope down on the other side of the fence. Some are retained and drop off. There's probably 3 or 4 different conditions across that property
Right.
line.
Okay. That's why we want to see.
Okay.
Jim, continue.
No,
Is that your biggest comment?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
What was the comment about grading again? I got the sections and someone wanted to see some more information about grade.
I think what I thought I heard everyone saying is we want to see some sections
Okay.
as far down as you can get within reason where elevations, and you may need to go get some survey marks at
So
some
we
of the
want to
adjacent
know
properties.
if, I mean, you're grading, I don't know where you're grading yet, but are you bringing in fill to do this pad, to bring in these
No,
terraces?
that's the whole intention for this is to balance the site. We're taking the cut from here and filling it here, and nothing is exported from the site.
So that's going to be important for us to see.
Sure.
Sure.
Okay.
I get that.
Mr. Chair, if
Fred.
I make comments, I want to follow up on Brian's comment about this area off the laundry room. I'm a little concerned that this could be one of those cases where a few years down the road, without a whole lot of effort by whoever might own the house at that time, that could be filled in very quickly and an additional square footage for the house added. So I guess I'm a little concerned. Maybe, Brian, that was what you were thinking or looking at when you asked that question.
I think I can clarify that. We can put a grade elevation there for you, and you'll notice there's only 4 or 5 feet of space.
Can you let me finish my comments?
So, Fred, I do want to make a comment.
Yes.
We just have to look at the bulk mass scale to make sure that we're comfortable with
Right.
this, okay? Regardless of whether it's going to be filled in or not. Hopefully, it will not.
And then just on the architecture in general, I'm going to apologize because I have a hard time reading computer drawings at the sort of concept level to get an understanding of the flavor and nature of the architecture. And I'm just feeling that in general, the proportions and the detailing, particularly of the punctured windows, don't quite have the feel yet of a traditional Spanish building. And it's almost as if the approach here is some contemporary applications to what May wants to. It's not to say, it's not telling me it wants to be a contemporary Spanish building or a traditional Spanish building. And I guess I'm kind of reading it. It's not there yet in my own mind. Particularly, for instance, on your north elevation, you have a square window, and then you have these long windows proportionally going up the staircase. I think if you look at some of our great pieces of residential architecture designed in this style, those windows could have maybe a little different look. I'm also looking at the proportions of the space between the top of the arches on the Galleria that comes in on the side and the floor above that. I'm not sure that proportion really works yet. I'm not certain that just above that, the railings, I'm assuming you'll come back with some more details, but the railings look a little weak, so to speak, in relationship to the typical massing of a Spanish building that has, deep, thick walls to it. I guess I'm just not feeling like the detailing and the placement of some of the window openings and the architectural components are quite there yet. I guess I'm not comfortable at this point.
I would agree with you. Ms. Bryant.
Yeah. Continue on with what Fred has to say. On your south elevation, I'm uncomfortable with the transition of the arcade or Galleria that you called going into the front door entry. Traditionally, your columns on the top align with the columns below because it's, weight-based stonework or adobe. So I think this whole area here needs to be revisited in terms of I should.
That's actually been revised already.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying it doesn't work. It should be cut off. I think on the edge here, like right here, it should stop. There should be or something like that, where the columns align on top. The other thing I was looking at, and the reason I asked about the laundry room was possibly pulling the house back to the cliff. I know you're between a rock and a hard place on this property, just so that it kind of steps back on the second level rather than being a straight up. So you're kind of giving the neighbors below a benefit of the doubt so that your first level's here and then you step back on the second level and take advantage of the grading behind you. I don't know how that's successful that would work, but I do notice that if you look on your floor plan, on your garage, where you have the storage mechanical, if the garage was pushed back or something, so the deck was pushed back, I'm just looking at something so that it kind of pulls back away from this side of the property. And that's kind of my comment.
Okay.
Have a look at that.
I want to quickly follow up with Fred and Brian's comments regarding the sort of the detailing and the style issues. Brian's absolutely correct about how the balconies and terraces and all of the massing elements should align or work out better than they do. But this particular element here, I'm kind of confused as to how that would even work detail-wise. It seems like it's just a straight cantilever off of this side, and it looks like it's just in stucco, and this is just so non-traditional. It just makes, it doesn't help the project. So I would encourage that to be resolved. There's some other things on the side elevations that also kind of give me some concern about where the heights of roofs are. because the way this detail is, or this elevation is, where this door actually looks like it's touching the roof tile. So structurally, there has to be something else going on there, or this door is lower or that roof is higher to make that work. And that's concerning me about the roofs and how they would work together. So.
Mr. Chair, do you have, while you're on that sheet, maybe others might have comments. Is anyone concerned about the general design of the trellises at both the balconies?
I just don't think they're thought through 100% yet, the way posts and corbels might work together.
Well, the size and thickness and the detailing as well.
Yeah, the detailing is just not quite at the level I think it really needs to be to pull this off successfully.
One solution with the arches would be when the arch comes down to the spring line, maybe have stone columns. You really don't define anything happening there. You just have two lines. So, stone columns or, heavier, I think heavier details. And the railing, you could have every 4 feet, you could have a vertical that's thick, maybe with a cap or something. And maybe you plan on doing that, picking up details like that. But the railing is just too light. So.
Yes. I mean, it's just we're kind of repeating ourselves as more traditional detailing if it's going to be a traditional style house. Again, one of the comments Fred had had to do with the windows and kind of the proportions. And right now we're looking at windows that have no breakups in them at all. So that would be more contemporary Spanish than traditional Spanish. And we're just not quite sure where it's going. We heard it was supposed to be more traditional, and that sort of detail needs to come out. In addition to all the other sectional information and height issues that we kind of have talked about. Denise, do you have some comments that you want to share? Or?
I've already
Okay.
spoken. I agree with everything that's being said.
Jim, do you have any additional comments?
No.
Okay. Fred? Okay. So I think what we're doing is coming up with a list of information that we're going to need to better evaluate the project. And hopefully the refinement of the architecture. I think the landscape will naturally evolve into a wonderful plan, and it's pretty wonderful right now. But I think we need more information, specifically the sections, integrating right through the building, right through the site, right through the retaining walls, right through showing landscape canopies, right down to the retaining walls, to the properties below, so we can evaluate that better. Can I just wrap that up into a motion? Have the applicant, do you need 2 weeks, 4 weeks to come back?
2 weeks is plenty.
2 weeks? Okay. So a 2-week continuance for the applicant to bring additional information, specifically site sections going through the subject property and down to the lower neighboring properties. And I would suggest 2, 3, 4, as many as you have. The more information we have to evaluate, the better, the less questions we're going to have. And to continue refinement on the house. We didn't really talk about the massing because we're just not sure how it even fits on the site yet. I mean, it seems like the square footage is within the Planning Commission's requirements, so we're just trying to make it work the best we can right now on the property.
Mr. Chair, one detail comment. When you do the sections, if one of the sections that you do is through the house, because you said you would extend the one you had, if you could just kind of give us some idea in one of those sections how the awnings you're proposing look like in the section. You have awnings over several of the windows, so maybe if you can get one of the sections to go through that awning, it would be helpful.
Okay. And I know there's been a lot of comment regarding this cut fill thing, but until we kind of see more sectional information, I don't think it's fair for our board to even evaluate that yet.
Mr. Chair, if I just might ask and give the board the opportunity and the applicants the opportunity, given the development that exceeds the building site envelope, that maybe reconsider 2 weeks. I mean, if you're wanting an approval, I mean, I know they give you a little bit of a list to come back with, but before you can get an approval, you have to have that possible substantial conformance determination. So just something to think about. And then also if you guys might want to comment on the proposal that they're showing outside of that envelope and whether or not you think it's appropriate to the site, something that as it moves forward, just comments for the record.
Okay. Fred, do you want to jump in?
Well, Mr. Chair, my sense is what the board members are feeling is it's hard for us to make a comment on that until we start to see these sections
We don't have
to
the
understand.
information.
So for me, personally, it's hard to kind of make comment one way or the other until I can see the sections. In general, it kind of looks like a nice idea, but, without seeing that information, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to say is I don't feel comfortable making any comments until I see the sections.
So it'd be continuing 2 weeks for comments only again, until you can provide that.
Wouldn't it have to anyway? Because even if I had everything together, it still has to reach that determination before.
That's what I was saying, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Any other specific? Is the board comfortable with the style? I mean, better detailing, but
Yeah, one more comment. It's like the roof canopies on the south elevation. They're kind of chopped off on the first level, so I think there needs to be a little more scrutiny on that, too. How the roof canopies are applied on the south elevation.
Mr. Chair, I think my sense is from my fellow board members, the style is okay.
Yes.
It's just that we haven't arrived at if this is a true traditional Spanish-style hacienda, two-story building. The elements aren't there yet, is what I'm sensing. If it's going to be a contemporary interpretation of Spanish architecture, then maybe we need to see some more detailing, and again, some of the proportional ideas of how windows are placed in the walls and the arches and so forth. But it's not helping us yet, I guess. That's what my sense is.
okay. I just wanted to give the applicant some sort of positive information that the design is going forward in a likely to be approved manner. That's all. I mean, would we be able to approve a Spanish-style house here?
Absolutely.
So that's what I wanted to make sure that you're not designing a house that you're going to just totally rip up and throw away 2 weeks from now.
I would support the style.
Thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
Okay. So that was the motion. 2 week back to the full board. Yeah. Do I do it? Can I be the first or no?
You crafted it, so we should have somebody else do it.
Is somebody willing to first that motion?
I'll make the first motion.
And a second?
I'll be second.
And other comments? Nothing. Okay, so take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries. We'll see you in 2 weeks. I think my comments are somewhat.
Got it?
There's my stuff. So we're going to move to item number 5. We're sorry we're a bit late on this one. It's a new item. It's 1301 West Mountain Drive. Again, a new item, so I'll read the project description. Proposal to construct a new 6,221 square foot two-story residence with an attached 725 square foot three-car garage. The original 3,718 square foot residence was destroyed in the T-fire. Proposal to construct a 615 square foot addition to an existing 510 square foot second residence, and to construct a new 450 square foot two-car carport for the second residence. The project includes approximately 1,886 cubic yards of cut and fill grading located outside of the building footprint. The 10.5-acre project site is located in the Hillside Design District. The proposal is 78% of the maximum floor-to-lot area ratio guideline, and the project includes staff hearing officer review for the requested performance standard permit to allow the additional dwelling unit. This is comments only, so if you could introduce yourselves.
My name's Ken Radke from Blackbird Architects, and
welcome.
We're here with.
I'm Don McCorkle. I'm the owner of the project, and this is my wife Marilyn, and my son Joe, and my son Matt, and his wife, I, and our 2 grandchildren.
Everybody.
And we have a neighbor, Jonathan.
We'll get to them in a bit.
So we got a bunch of people here.
So if you could present your project, sir.
Yes, please, Mr. Chair. Thank you. The project at 1301 Mountain Drive is a rebuild. It's been a protracted process with the insurance company. I'm sure you've heard that story. So after 3 years with them, we're back here. The original parcel, by the way, had as was common in the day when this project was first built in the 40s, various structures spread around and included garage, barn, artist studio, and workshops. And as a result of the wrangling of the past few years, basically it's being consolidated more or less into this main house. And by comparison to what was there before, it's less space, but it winds up statistically sounding like an increase in what was there before. The 10.5 acres, if you look in the vicinity, you'll see that below it is Mountain Drive. This property is accessed by a 1,300-foot driveway from Mountain Drive, and the house, the existing house site with its touching proposed house site, is at the rear of a more or less flat spot from Mountain Drive. Neither the former or the proposed locations of structures, nothing was visible from Mountain Drive, nor would it be visible from Mountain Drive now because of existing vegetation, tall trees in here, and we'll show that in the photos and in the section so you get a sense of that. So the house is in the middle of 10.5 acres, and there's this flag portion that reaches across the gully. If we look at some of the photos that were submitted, I went all along Mountain Drive, and at no point are you able to see the actual footprint or location of the building because of tall trees again and vegetation basically surrounding the property on the downhill side, which is more or less flat. So here there are views from Mountain Drive, the driveway entrance from Mountain Drive. From further along Mountain Drive to the west, again you see
Just gonna move just a little bit further down so that we're on the camera. That's all.
a view of this these tall trees, and again we'll see more photos of those. These maybe I'll save some of these of the project mentioned a second residence. So again, there's some interesting zoning situations with the parcel because there are 2 residences allowed on one parcel, which is unusual. And in changing this, that's why the project needs to go for the needs to basically apply and discuss with planning to basically reapply for the same situation that they already had, which was the performance standard permit. So this is the only surviving structure from anything was this small adobe, and again, as you are probably familiar with from those times, this has got doorways with 5'10" headers and so forth. So all very quaint. Here's some photos of this flat spot with the tall vegetation on the south side. And here's some of the interesting adobe ruins that have since been taken out. The original structure was a rambling affair with indoor and outdoor enclosed spaces, many of which would not be allowed under current zoning because there were spaces completely removed from each other, although the entire house had only one kitchen.
You might add that the history book described it as an Andalusian village, talking about the house.
And that sense of being broken up and village-like is, you'll see we're seeking some of that in the new proposed structure. This is a photo of this adjacent footprint where the owners would like to locate the house. And here's an aerial photo, and I think we've got the same one bigger here of what was previously there. So you can see this surrounded by vegetation and this rambling house with interior courtyards and atrium spaces and spread out over 15, 16 feet, even though it was technically a one-story structure. I think this one, the design board recommends contact with the neighbors and so forth. So all of these, most adjacent neighbors have been contacted, and some are supportive and are here. None had any concerns that were expressed. This also shows that this 10.5-acre parcel is also surrounded by 32 acres, 52 acres, 10, etc. So generally, in the middle of this parcel is a house. I think that gets us there. If we look at the site plan again, here's Mountain Drive down here, a 1,300-foot driveway to get up to the residence. That's a survey. I think the best overview might actually be in some models that we've done that are on page 3.1. So both of these views, I think, show this is the small second residence that would get an addition, but the main house is proposed to be a kind of village-like, also with various massing that goes up and down. And the house includes a garage with an art studio above that. The main entry is on this base level here to the main house, and then on the second floor, there are two broken up elements that are on the second floor. On the far end above the master bedroom is a library study that's set back with a porch on the front, and off of this entry portion of the house are quarters and bedrooms for kids and grandkids. Then maybe we switch back to the plan so you could kind of relate to most specifically to what that is all about, and we kind of step up through from bottom to top. Sorry, we've got a garage on this main level. Again, the flat spot here with the existing second residence is here. It comes up, slopes up very gently here. These are existing lawns out in some of this area to be retained, and these tall trees are all around. So we've got a garage and art storage. The family is very involved with art. They're artists and show their art. We come up to this main house level here, and there's what amounts to a kind of a bridge that comes across from the upper terrace above the art studio into the main house level. And this is really basically on an existing terrace level. There are existing site walls here, and then things would be all on one level in traversing the topography this way, but with the roof heights jumping up and down, and very small patios spread around for great indoor-outdoor connections. This shows the two divided upstairs areas. Really, this is the family bedroom area, and here's a library study area. Most of these spaces have south-facing balconies or terraces, typically with some roof overhang on them. This is just technically showing the height calculation. We've got slope here, and I think this elevations and sections are informative about that. So this is that elevation, main elevation to the south, to the downhill side. This is the westerly elevation, and so you can see the garage and study, this sort of entry level here, and the upper level there. This northerly elevation is least developed, but it's basically facing terrace and mountainside. And then we've seen this, and then I think these sections, always a good tool. They help understand what's going on. So I think if we start here at the section number 1, you'll see the blue is the existing grade, the red is the offset for the height calculation, and then the bermed-in garage storage, and this structure that heads up with a bridge to this upper terrace where the main house is. And then you've got a section through the middle of the house, which is just a one-story element, again on that terrace, and a section through the far easterly end of the house, which has a master bedroom and a study above. And this little tiny plan shows where those sections are taken. I can cover that second residence as long as we're talking.
Sure. All right, that's on the agenda, right? Yeah.
Of interest. It shows on the first plan, this is this existing funky adobe, and the family is really desirous to use it like a guest house, because it's an extended family that lives here in town and out of town too. So what they'd like to do is add on bedrooms and bathrooms and connect that. Their desire really is to have an outdoor connection similar to what was happening with the house before. And there will be some discussion with the county about, the city about the performance standard permit and the ability to work that into existing planning and zoning notions. And again, typically in the city, everything's urban, and so the sort of the mentality is to keep people from generating extra living quarters. In this case, it's a 10-acre site, really an estate, if you will, with extended family living on site, 2 residences. And this is a small second residence that's permitted, and they'd rather have it configured as more of a guest situation. The approach to this is to be as quiet and gentle as possible. There's an existing very rustic tile roof, and so we're proposing right now to just create another one of those tile roofs, but let it float, and then underneath would be vine-covered walls and more of a pavilion-type approach to the actual structure, and let these two really relate to the outdoor space the best. actually adding on and touching this adobe is a technical challenge, sincerely, for the structural engineers, and just, as you all probably know, as soon as you start messing with it, it falls to powder. And so we do have elevations of that approach on the in this sheet. So from the north, the uphill side, it's more or less bermed, and we're talking about just replicating these. And we know that this kind of model is not great for showing the rustic texture of the existing roof, but hopefully shows the intent for massing and organization. And again, a lot of existing vegetation in the area. It's strange that big trees, all kinds of bushes, shrubs, and vegetation survived, but
When we walked up there, we actually didn't think the house had burned down. All the trees around it, a lot of them had survived.
So there we are, and if you have questions, we're happy to
Thank you.
fill you in.
So I'm going to bring it. Does the staff have comments on this project regarding the performance standard, or what?
I could just expand on that. Essentially, this is a zoned a single-family residential lot, which only allows one single-family residence. However, there is an exception, which was identified as a performance standard permit, where a single-family residentially zoned parcel can have two single-family residences on the lot, given they qualify for number of standards. For instance, double the lot size, the minimum required lot size. So I think he said it's a 10-acre lot that's been met. But the process does involve going through the staff hearing officer review for the performance standard permit for the use to allow two single-family residences on one single-family lot.
All right, thank you. So at this point, I'll open up public comment. I have only one slip. Forgive me, I'm not very...
Jonathan Broyce is my name.
If you could sit up here, sir. And if you have 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes to speak and make comments on the project.
Yes, I'm the adjoining neighbour to the west of this property. We actually look down onto the property and the old existing adobe residence we could see all the roofs from. It has very mature planting which survived the fire miraculously. It's probably the best mature planting along Mountain Drive, and that is actually a feature from when we look east. We look right down on a very nicely landscaped area, and we've been looking for the last 2.5 years at a derelict site, and pretty sad site it was. And I've seen the conceptual drawings, and the only part of the new dwelling at all that we will see, because these drawings don't actually show very well how mature the olive trees are that are going to stay, and it totally hides the roof line. All we will see is the garage on the hammerhead turnaround. We just see the corner of that garage, and that is considerably less than we used to see with a terracotta roof that was a massive rambling house. So from my point of view, I actually prefer this to what was the old adobe and terracotta, because it was so multi-level. This fits in really well, and it disappears into the foliage. And I'm actually the only property that can see this dwelling from anywhere, unless you go right to Gibraltar Rock and look down, and then you will be able to see the very east corner, and it's a very small bit you'll see, because to the east they have mature olive plantation there that totally hides it again.
All right. I have a question. Did your house make it through the T-fire?
We did.
Okay.
I bought it just before the T-fire, and literally I got married the day before the T-fire at the house. But I do a lot of landscape work, and I had a machine on site, and when I saw the fire start, I pushed everything down the hill away from the house.
What's the construction of your house, the finishes and things?
It's traditional, really. It's a tile roof
Stucco.
and stucco. So it's what replicates what was here before, but nobody actually looks down on my roof.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this point, I'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for their questions. I have a question. Is there a grading plan that's been developed yet? The civil grading plan?
It's concept only. There,
Those grades are all on the same, the floor plan, each level of plan has grades.
so we have a survey, and
Grading numbers were calculated by civil, but there's no formal civil grading plan submitted yet.
this cut and fill is by Mike Goins.
Okay. And then other question, what was the age of this adobe?
It was built like in the late 40s. It actually is in the old history books. It's referred to as Casa Coyote. If you have any of the old history books, they're sometimes referred to as the Morgan House. And it really was like buying an old mission. It had murals on the wall and everything else. It's old adobe. And when the fire swept through here, so weird because it completely wiped out the house and went this way, and it wiped out all these other buildings except for the guest house and the fairly mature fruit trees and palm trees around here, which, interestingly enough, we had it under irrigation, I think, but the irrigation hit about the time of the fire, so I think that's why that spot didn't get burned out.
And then the only other question I have right now is the condition of existing vegetation. There's a lot of grading coming in this area, it looks like.
Right.
And I don't know what's burned or what's there.
There's not much up here.
There's two burnt olive trees, I think.
Yeah, there's a
One's burnt
handful
olive.
of olive trees right in here. There was going up here these old tall, thin cypress trees that the fire department hates. Well, they all became torches except for like one or two of them. So all of those have been removed because I think all of them except for one were just completely gone, and it was half gone. So that was mainly the most part of the vegetation going up there. It's had kind of a staircase effect going up with those trees up to the top level, which was a little walkway, and then they had some of the olive trees out here on the outer side.
So the development of these structures isn't affecting any trees right now? Are we taking down any trees?
No, there's a burnt out olive stump that I look at.
Yeah,
It's on the
there's-
side.
it's-
It's quite a big old olive tree, but it's just a hollow stump that's growing from the ground, little shoot. That's all
it's
I can see.
quite clear, basically like this. And so this part here was planted terraces and slope before.
Okay. Board members, questions?
Yes, how does an adobe burn?
Fire gets on the inside. And what happened was that somehow, of course, it had old fragile windows, didn't have modern standard windows, and very old wooden. And what the firemen told us is the fire got on the inside, and they said it got to be like 3,000 degrees inside the house. And they, even had a Viking stove that literally melted to the floor. There was just literally nothing left at all.
So sorry.
I did lose the machine that saved my house. 'Cause I rented the machine. I took the engine back the next day to the rental company. I said, "It's overheated, your engine." He said, "What, you've taken it out?" I said, "Yes, here it was 15-foot alloy engine block that had just melted down the street."
Fred, Jim, Brian, questions?
So, again, what are the actions we need to do then?
Well, comments, staff hearing officer, if we feel it's, we can give positive comments, we give positive comments.
Another question, even though you compliment the flat roofs, how do they become fire resistant? Because I'm thinking that's a table for fires too. How do you reconcile flat roofs?
Well, we're proposing sort of metal for the most part with low slope roofs, and then the other roofs can all be Class A or better. And frankly, it wasn't the flat roofs that caught on fire with any of these. So
No, the roof actually collapsed inside of the house after everything else collapsed.
So for the most part, this house is intended, obviously this family is very intent on being fire resistant, and most of the roofs will be metal.
Educating myself as well.
Mostly what we've spent a lot of time researching it with the fire department and advising and everything else, and everybody basically tells us the most important thing is a defensible perimeter, is making sure you have it as clear as possible around the house. And we're going to try to have irrigation and sprinkling systems around that'll keep things watered down. We're fortunate enough to have a well on the property, so that helps as well to keep things down. But it was, to be perfectly honest with you, if we had a modern system, it might have survived anyway. because there wasn't any sprinkler system, there was no, and the irrigation system just happened to be irrigating down here, and I literally had no control over it. So there was nothing that I could do to, to direct anything from a defensive standpoint at the time.
I think with modern build code as well now, which we found when we were developing our house, you can have non-vented roof, and there's different insulations that probably will make...
I really think that's what happened, is it got in either through a window or through the winds were very intense, either through like up in the rafters, which were very old and had a lot of airspace.
Okay. All right, thank you. Additional questions? No? Comments?
I'd like to comment.
Go ahead.
I think it's really an exciting design and well presented, with the way you were able to identify the different roof sections coming up. You're able to step up the hillside and then not have full two-story walls. You're able to break it with a roof or a patio, and I think it's a great design.
We very much wanted to have it really integrate into the landscape, because that's one of the things that we loved about the old design, frankly, was that it was very much integrated into a part of the landscape. We've even talked to the architect about making sure our color choices were earth tones. So.
Fred?
Mr. Chair, a comment. I agree with Jim. I think it's great designs, well presented. This is a good example for people that are thinking about how do you show the board site sections. That's a great way to do it. It's really clear. It allows us to understand where the height limitation is in relationship to the existing grade. So that's a good example. Comment on the colors. I can see where you're going. I think that's going to be fine. I agree with your approach. By the way, I enjoyed your sculpture. I'm assuming that terrace garden will hold more sculpture in the future. So. In relationship to Brian's concern about the flat roofs, my assumption was that you're probably going to go to some kind of single ply application on the flat part, which the section built through there can be made 1 or 2 hour fire resistive. But what will be important is the color of that roof material, because I know typically if we're trying to be sustainable, we want to make that roof a light color, which is kind of opposite of where you're trying to head with these elevations. Dark color obviously attracts the radiant heat and presents a heating problem. So it'll be interesting to see how you approach that and kind of get close to what you've presented here versus the technical issue of solving the fire resistant and the ability to keep the house cool. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how you approach it. But short of that, I think it looks great.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing it.
Yes, Mr. Chair. One of the things that I'm curious about, which is something that we used to always pay attention to and we seem to have fallen by the wayside, is solar panels. Any intention to incorporate solar panels?
We're looking very closely at solar power as a possibility for the project. Part of it, of course, is economic, but my youngest son actually spent some time working in the solar industry, so he's fairly familiar with it. And, of course, we've looked at a couple of different things. The nice thing about this site, by the way, is that you do have some options for panel placement other than roof placement.
Other than on the roof.
So, that's one of the things that we're exploring right now, but we really haven't made any, final decision on it. As you know, there's one of the strategies a lot of people use is developing solar panels that are sufficient to bring you down to below a certain charge rate, so that you're at the lower rate. So that's one of the things we're looking at. It's an industry that's literally changing every day. So every time you turn around and look at it, the costing and everything else is completely different. But I have quite a bit of experience in the environmental arena. I was a filmmaker that made an environmental advocacy film and so forth, so I kind of have a lot vested in trying to do as much as possible in that direction.
Well, then you're a great candidate for it. Other than that comment, I think that it's a lovely project as well, and I'm looking forward to seeing some kind of a landscape plan that might illuminate it further.
We're working on that. By the way, I literally spent 8 hours a week in horticulture classes at Southern at the community college, including becoming personally certified as a green gardener to deal with this. So we're working closely on.
I think you have a very fortunate site because you have so much mature planting that survived the fire.
It really
It
is
is special.
enormous
You have to go to
opportunity.
Lotus Land to find trees of the specimens that they've got.
Brian, did you get any
I
comments?
just want to say, I think Frank Lloyd Wright would be proud.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to share a couple comments, and I agree with most of the board members. I think it's a really special project. I think it's a special lot, and you're really taking you're doing the lot in the site its justice. But I do have to get through a couple of things, just specifics. I want the board to talk about, bulk mass, the style, the second residence aspect. We have to give some comments to, and also the grading, because there's quite a bit of grading on the project. There's 1,886 cubic yards. That's why I asked about a grading plan at first. And it looks like there's a lot of fill going in that area. So I just wanted
It's
to...
on-site fill, basically, it's readjusted.
We haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But I just wanted the board to kind of get some comments out to make sure that these are concepts that we're going to be comfortable with. That's all. So, I mean, it's a big lot. That's the first thing.
So, Mr. Chair, listening to my fellow board members, it appears that we're all comfortable with the style. That was one of your check marks, that we appear to be all comfortable with the bulk and scale of the proposed project. And I think my sense is that we're all comfortable with the secondary unit and that it's being treated wisely. I hope you're able to retain the adobe and do the technical part from a code standpoint. I think that's a nice approach. So from an aesthetic standpoint...
And the grading.
Let me tell you. So from an aesthetic standpoint, I don't know that I heard anybody negative about the second unit. And then, yes, obviously we'd like to see how the grading is going to work, but it appears that the intent is to try to do all the grading, cut and fill on site, so it comes out at a 0.
Okay. Does any other board member feel differently than what Jim said? I mean, I because of the property being so large, I mean, I think, this development, it kind of is, it's a big size. There's going to be some grading quantities, and it's on a hillside area, so you're going to wind up moving some dirt around. So, but because of all the mature landscaping that's there, and the sensitivity of the design, I feel comfortable with the grading quantities. I think it's going to be an excellent project.
Mr. Chair, I think the only issue that I'm sure will be addressed as we go through the process is the grading period and construction time and the protection of site during inclement weather, et cetera. But I'm sure that'll all be addressed in the process.
Okay. So we're ready to make comments to the staff hearing officer. Okay. So somebody willing to make a motion basically stating just what Fred said almost, that we're comfortable with the bulk mass, style. What's that? We feel comfortable with the performance aspect of the second residence and the grading. So I think those are big elements on this project.
So as the chair entertained that motion, I would make that motion.
Okay. And then that motion will also include coming back to a board, and I would imagine it'd be the full board, to show continued development, grading, landscaping elements and details and development on the rear side, and it's just further development. You've already 90% there anyway. So, any other comments on this?
I'll second.
Second. Take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Project.
Thank you.
Great project. At this point, we'll stand adjourned. We have no further business on the agenda.